count on me. You're gonna have a good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Could you do a deep dive on how contradiction is used in Marxist theory?
Two, check. 2, hello. The wife today said, so Rob, like my Blade Runner tweet, 3-second pause. He really is a mark for that era of movies, huh? It do be like that. That's true. It was just a very magical time in both movie making and storytelling in general, okay? The 80s. It was an interesting combination of this kind of new technology that forced filmmakers to still kind of like be inventive in the way they're kind of capturing things in camera. You had all the 80s paranoia about the future world that we're living in currently manifesting. Great score on that as well. That Vangelis synth score. Iconic. As well. I just love it. It's just it's a very special, unique time in filmmaking and art history that you can never really get back. It's just this era that's just gone away. You know? In music as well, it's when all these new sophisticated recording techniques were being invented, and people that came from the previous paradigm were figuring out how to incorporate everything.
Rob to talk you through all this.
What are we talking about? Skinamarink.
Dappercat, thank you for the 14 months tier 1. Thank you, Dappercat. I still haven't seen that, actually. And Plunger Man also, thank you for the 17-month resub at tier 2. Thank you, Plunger Man. Could you do a deep dive on how contradiction is used in Marxist theory? I guess that's something we could do. It seems kind of an important concept. I mean, my main takeaway about that is the primary contradiction. Imperialism remains true. It remains true to this day that is the primary contradiction that we're dealing with. Sometimes we lose sight of that. Sometimes that gets obfuscated. It remains true, though. I didn't see all of the new Blade Runner, Marty. It seemed alright, but I didn't see the entire thing. It also depends which one you watched, Marty, because I know there's a lot of different versions of the Ridley Scott Blade Runner. Like, I know the studio got forced Ridley Scott to record like a whole like voiceover narration. Okay, the director's cut, so that was without the voiceover narration. There's the whole cut that's like really got that noirish Harrison Ford's narrating the whole movie. And he seems super not interested in it, by the way. It's funny in that level. The whole thing is like, I can't believe they're making me do this kind of vibe to it. Anyway, very good flick. That should be in the Rob canon. Blade Runner. I mean, Ridley Scott has his faults. I think we all know where I stand on the film Prometheus. We don't need to get into the details of that. But this man made Alien and Blade Runner in like a 3-year span. So, what am I going to say? What am I going to say about the guy? I mean, I got a few things I can say. John, no. No. He really do. He loving that Jesus nonsense. The whole Jesus subtext in Prometheus is even stupider. Jesus. They're going to kill us because Jesus was an alien. I feel like in the Bible they would have mentioned that Jesus was an 8-foot tall blue man. You know? In the Bible, if it was just like the Bible written as it is normally, like the New Testament. But in this, there's just this one chapter where they're like, by the way, this guy was 8 foot tall and blue. Just FYI. Just FYI. Just we want to mention that as well. It seems important. It seems important. Isn't that whole thing kind of a way of delegitimizing like older, like African and Middle Eastern cultures as well? The whole thing with like the pyramids. Well, that must have been aliens that did that. Oh, Jesus was an alien. While totally just like erasing all the centuries of history and art and just basically suggesting, oh, these primitive early societies couldn't have done that. Only like Europeans can build things, can build monuments. You're telling me they were building these big monuments while we were still crawling around in the dirt? No, I don't think so. I'm sure you like the whole Jesus is from an alternate universe plotline in Prince of Darkness. I gotta say, I don't remember that one. '90s and early 2000s History Channel was such a criminal sham. It was all that crap, and Hitler was bad because he believed in psychic powers. Yeah. I think he was bad for other reasons personally, but if you want to go with that, that's kind of interesting. The aliens must have built the pyramids. People are fucking idiots because a pyramid is not an advanced structure, and it's exactly plausible ancient cultures could build them. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I don't know. Anyway, I don't even know what got started on this. Blade Runner is still good, though. And Prometheus is not part of the alien film canon. Let's just leave it at that. How was everyone's weekend? Prometheus is not canon? Well, I mean, officially, I don't know. I'm saying that it's not. Who are you going to believe? The 20th Century Fox Corporation or me? Who has more credibility? Ate shit at the skate park and didn't get hurt. That's good to know. Moonfall is canon. Yeah. I'm not having the best day, actually. I'm in a lot of pain right now. And it's frustrating because, like, there's things I need to do. You know, just
count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Almost slubbed to the rub for a full year and couldn't be more grateful to our omniscient worm god.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for the 11 months. Tier 1. I really appreciate it. I appreciate having you in the community. Everyone, please give a follow to our friend Johnny of Subversive History. 13 short months away, Johnny, from the elite exclusive TRRS 2-year sub badge. Yeah, there's stuff I have to do, like in addition to just all the stuff, you know, playing with my kid. I gotta bring him to school and pick him up and everything like that. I gotta go grocery shopping. But right now I'm just in like extreme pain. I have extreme pain in my foot right now. Which was kind of bothering me on Friday and has just bothered me more and more throughout the weekend. And I've been trying to take medication to deal with it, and it's not fucking helping. And I just woke up this morning and was still in really bad pain and was just like annoyed. So like I can't really do anything. I couldn't go grocery shopping. I was like really hungry, so I ate some mac and cheese, some boxed mac and cheese, which I had in my pantry, which just was like off somehow. I don't know how, like it wasn't past the date or anything like that. I don't think the milk that I think the milk that I used was okay. It was fine, but it just was like off. It just was not, something wrong with it. Oh, I put ketchup, John, believe me. I put ketchup. Of course I did. And in fact, that made it like somewhat edible. I managed to eat some of it because the ketchup elevated it to like a almost edible level. But still just couldn't finish it. So I'm just like fucking, it's just annoying. I hate being in pain all the time. It's not like I'm in pain 24 hours, like every single day of my life.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
I don't know what I am doing with these.
Thank you, Lennon Smash, for the 200 friend coin. Thank you. And please, everyone, give a follow to our friend Lennon Smash as well. Our skateboard-loving gaming streamer as well. Seriously, John, I feel like that right now. I feel like old Rob. Right now. What type of pain? Well, I have gout. Again, it's like this is the one like debilitating disease that for some reason it's like weird or embarrassing to talk about. It's not really based on diet or anything like that. It's a genetic thing. I get it a lot when temperatures drop really low. And right now, just on the side of my foot, I have this like fucking like just this ball of pain. And what that is it, because of the uric acid buildup in your bloodstream, it creates all these tiny little crystal shards in your blood. And the crystal shards all end up in this like clot, basically. Sometimes in my foot or my toe or my ankle. It kind of depends. And so it's just this tiny little ball of like millions of tiny little knives, basically, stabbing you internally whenever you move. Yeah, you grow tiny little knives in your blood that clog up your shit. That's right. That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. So this has been getting worse all week. I've been taking meds. I've been taking lots of Advil and like ibuprofen or whatever, which helps deal with the pain, but like I can't seem to get rid of it. And it's just, I was just miserable today. It really sucks. I don't know if that qualifies as being disabled. Like I certainly feel disabled right now. I don't feel like this every single day of the year. Really on an annual basis, we're probably talking about a couple weeks of like being in pain and having difficult mobility issues. Maybe a month or two, but it's like, fuck, it's so debilitating. It's really hard. It's really hard to just wake up and be in pain, especially in your feet too, because like it totally affects all your mobility. Like I said, I have to bring my kid to school. I got to pick him up. I got to go get groceries. I got to do a number of things. It's like, I can't walk right now, basically. Just like putting on my boot this morning was just miserable. It sucks. It sucks. So I'm kind of in a bad mood. I don't know. I'm kind of in a bad mood. I'm still here doing the show. It's nice when you have chronic issues, you need to avoid stress, and you're like, oh, no problem. Yeah. I will simply avoid stress, and we should be all right. I get that with my ankle. I have torn Achilles, but can't spell it. God. Right now, Rob's a rude dude with a bad dude because he's being attacked by his food. Correct. That's right. It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked. Everybody sucks. I wasn't the world's biggest Limp Bizkit fan, but sometimes you do have days like that, don't you? That's why that was relatable to people. It's like, I get it. I get it. Limp Bizkit versus Papa Roach. I was really never really a fan of either. What was that big Papa Roach song? Wish somebody would tell me I'm fine. It just always bugged me. It's just always like, it's like a well-written song. It's a well-constructed song. It sounds good. I just always found it annoying. It's just really annoying. I just felt with that song that it's really like some kind of like corporate effort to appeal to kids and teens that are really going through genuinely difficult things and kind of trying to commodify that. Limp Bizkit do have some good songs, even if I find them annoying. I must say, though, corporate teenage angst, that's right. And like Limp Bizkit was that as well, but I mean, it felt a little bit more authentic, I guess. I must say, though, that Papa Roach has a good single out right now. I think it's called No Apologies, and it's actually pretty good. There's a radio station that I listen to sometimes in my car, The Buzz, which I think is from like Burlington or Vermont. And they play that kind of like nu metal, emo, indie rock stuff. And they've been playing that a lot. And it's pretty good. It's honestly pretty good, Marty. Like I was listening to it on the radio without knowing that it was Papa Roach, and I was like, okay, you know, one of those. Okay, turning it up a little bit. I've been listening to a lot of Thursday lately. The album is 22 years old. Very strangely, like even though I came from that exact era of like emo and post-hardcore, I never really got into Thursday. Like even though that was my exact, like I was really into like Taking Back Sunday and Brand New and like Poison the Well and the heavier kind of bands on that spectrum. Never got into Thursday though. I don't know why. I was more of a Tuesday guy. Oh. Jesus. Oh, my fucking foot. I prefer Tim Pool's emo band. Well, same, obviously.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
A quarter year of the illustrious PB.
Nedlock, thank you very much for the 28 months of Tier 1. Thank you, Nedlocked. You know, didn't listen to a lot of Glass Job. What about Glass Eater, though? That was kind of a random... That's kind of a deep cut from that era. Glass Eater had a couple good songs, though. I saw them at Hellfest 2K. Any interest in blues rock? Went through a big phase where I was a car commercial. I mean, I like a lot of rock that's influenced by blues. Like fucking Guns N' Roses have a lot of bluesy elements to them. Steely Dan, of course, heavily influenced by the blues. Now, I don't really listen to a lot of straight up blues rock, though. Maybe like some Stevie Ray Vaughan sometimes. If what you really have is gout, then it is 100% treatable, and I recently started treatment for the first time in 17 years of pain, which was believed to be ordinary arthritis. You need to get your blood screened for uric acid, which your body can't expel itself without medicine. I did that already, though. I did test higher for that. Just when there's a medicine that you have to take all the time to deal with it. Allopurinol, which I started to take, and it just made me feel like shit, though. So I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about my medical issues. It's weird. It's weird to talk about, and it's not really entertaining or engaging content for me to complain about the pain that I'm experiencing. Yeah, Zeppelin, of course. Big Zeppelin guy. Big Zeppelin guy over here. Yeah, we're talking about my medical issues, new metal, music in general. I don't know what, Ridley Scott, yeah. Those natural things. We can start talking about my cholesterol as well, yeah. Those very entertaining and engaging subjects that we love to talk about. I can't elevate my foot. There's nowhere to put it right now. I can't do a lying down stream. There's no way to make it feasible. I guess in theory I could lie down over on the sofa over there. It would be tricky though. And I'd have to turn the camera around. It would be tricky to pull that off logistically. I would like to do a sofa stream. I'll just tough it out. I'll tough it out right now. I'm alright. I haven't seen the last duel, Dimitri, but I kind of want to see it. You could use one of those anime avatars. Or maybe a soak in the tub. That would be good. I'm sure you sig freaks would like that, wouldn't you? I told you folks. We'll talk about that at the 1K sub mark, okay? Not before. And maybe I'll never get there. Maybe I'll never hit that benchmark, but that's how much my dignity costs. Okay? That's how much my dignity costs. Is 1,000 subs.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you very much, Lenin Smesh. Thank you. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. That's very kind of you. And thank you for your enthusiasm for the tub stream possibility. As we coerce Rob into doing a tub stream, which is very normal and cool of us. Don't worry, I'm setting the number at a level that I'm sure that I will never reach, so don't worry about it. Hey, Miss Underestimate, hello. I don't know about the rest of you, but my self-respect can be purchased for a specific dollar amount. I mean, here I am, right? Here I am. What do I do on here? I'm dancing to yacht rock tunes. I'm talking about my health issues. Doing karaoke. Just eating directly in front of a camera, staring into a camera and like eating various kinds of food. You know? I'm almost 40 years old. You know that, right? Health issue streams are always about as relatable as it gets. Well, I guess that's true. I know. I guess it's good that we should be able to talk about these things. But good morning, Hilda Beast. Hello. We're gonna get Hassan to give you a shout out. Hassan really should come back on the stream. We looked at that clip from when I was on his stream like a few years ago, and that extremely shitty video quality that I had before I even started any of this nonsense. I'm almost certain the average age of TRRS is 30 plus. Well, that's it. It's like I'm the Hassan for like geriatric millennials. We're all a bunch of like weirdos in our 30s who are completely alienated by everything. We all just congregate here on this platform. On this platform that's dominated by Zoomers that we find scary and intimidating. The Rob average viewers like MSNBC 63-year-olds. That's right. We all feel weirded out on all these other channels, right? We don't talk about these things. We feel weird and alienated. Hello, fellow kids. And here's like, oh, where all the weird old people come. All the weird old people of Twitch come and congregate here. I love that for us, frankly. I think there should be more. I think there is more alienated mid to late 30s and 40-year-olds and above that need an online space that they can go where they feel their views are being acknowledged and respected. It's not this weird, wacky conspiracy stuff where we can have a dialectical and historical materialist understanding of the world and geopolitical events. Yeah, who's XQS? What is Poggers? This was me, especially when I started doing this. I'm a little bit more understanding of it now. There maybe not be some moon talk. There's a little bit of weird conspiracy stuff, but just enough. Just enough to make it fun, all right? This is what TRRS is all about. Knowing what Poggers is, that's none of my business. Exactly. Exactly. A couple of updates. So I have been in touch with Ugopnik and the Deprogram Pod squad. So I'm sitting there. They were busy this week. Next week I'm actually not going to be around as much because it's March break and I'm going on a little vacation with my kid and my partner, which I'm looking forward to. But I do want to try and still stream and just figure out a way to not miss too much time. So next week's going to be a little wonky though. So we're talking about the 15th, March 15th with the Deprogram Pod folks. So that's what's coming up on the 15th. And I also did today text Brian Becker from the Socialist Program and Breakthrough News and the Answer Coalition. I did text him today about him coming on to talk up to us prior to the anti-war protest on March 18th. Going to try and find a time for that, so I'll keep you posted on that. But we got a couple of big guests, big crossovers coming. See, I weirdly got super depressed and Twitch addicted, and now my brain is rotted. Well, the thing is, though, Sean, it's not rotted, though, because now we're all here together learning about the proper, correct analysis So it rotted in a good direction. Your previously programmed persona and views melted away. And we've reprogrammed ourselves with the good ideas and the good opinions. Yeah, I gotta say, I've been seeing stuff about Aiden Ross. I don't really know what his deal is, though. He's like is he like a streamer? That now he's gotten fully brainwashed by the Andrew Tate thing? That's my understanding. Right? Something like that. I'm not going to make any more effort to learn any more about that. He's a big, huge streamer who's had Tate on a few times, and now he's a weirdo who's on the new Twitch that allows Nazi stuff and porn. Right, yeah. What's that, like Kick or something? Same recruitment strat as white supremacy groups. Yeah, it's like, and that's, that's why I lean on the even though TRRS is obviously not occult stuff. I do think it's important that we're finding people before they go down these reactionary directions, because people are really alienated. And they get preyed upon. And that's not to excuse anyone that takes on like horrible beliefs or starts to act in horrible ways. But I do think it's important to try and like have a space where people that are feeling that sense of alienation can come and get channeled into like productive directions. Oh, I did see that clip about fascism and stuff when he's like Googling it and everything, and he just has no idea what's going on. Okay, that's who that is. All right. I see. Hassan does art, but he himself would be first to admit he's not an ML. Yeah, and you know what? Like, I wouldn't even say that I am either, frankly, even though, as you know, as anyone knows from listening to me, that I'm very sympathetic to that viewpoint. I kind of also view people that are like actually dedicated Marxist Leninists or whatever, if you're not actually like in part of a revolutionary organization, like out there trying to like build things in the real world, to me, then it gets to be a little bit like cosplay kind of stuff. I'm definitely sympathetic to that viewpoint. That's that kind of materialist analysis of history and modern current events unlocked a lot of things for me, but I also still feel a little uncomfortable kind of referring to myself like that. I'm definitely very sympathetic to it, and it's definitely that version of history is the thing that has made me sort of understand. It's been the red pill that takes you out of the matrix, and that takes, as much as these like Andrew Tate types talk about the matrix, that's the real red pill. To unplug yourself from the matrix is reading State and Revolution. It is the kind of thing that helps unlock a lot of things. It helps make you understand why things in our culture and our society and our economy are the way they are. I don't think it helps how problematic some people try and jam their reactionary viewpoints as ML, poisoning the well, little groups at a time. Exactly. And like we were talking about the other day with the anti-war stuff, mixing the anti-war movement with like these overtures to the trans panic and the MAGA crowd and those kind of types, the anti-vaxxers, which ends up just like completely alienating people from these viewpoints in the first place. Anyway, try to provide like a landing zone for people who are alienated by our current like conditions, and especially who look around at the news and see the news stories about China, about Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, whatever, and say, I don't believe any of this. I believe I'm being lied to. But if I'm being lied to by these media forces, who's telling the truth? And it's like trying to provide a little landing zone for people that feel that sense of alienation. Yeah, but that Marty, that's why it's going to be good to talk to the deprogram guys, because I think it's that I'm interested in that concept. I did see the Woody Harrelson anti-vax thing. It's so weird, like that was on like aired on TV. Fucking weird. Let's keep this focused on Rampart, folks. Oh boy, that's an old Reddit joke. Time for some whiz-biz. Do not speak to me of the ancient magic. I was there when it was written. I'll tell you who's telling the truth. Your good pal Rib. That's right. That is absolutely right. And it is depressing that people shrug it off. Well, and just this whole thing about the fucking big pharma and outlining these big pharma companies and not putting together like Woody Harrelson exactly, and a lot of the people that have this kind of analysis where they say, well, big pharma wants this, so it must be bad. And their criticism of these big pharma corporations goes to like medicine in general and not the commodification of it, right? That's the fucking scam. That's the evil part. The medicine, they're actually pretty good at making the kind of medicine. The point is that we want everyone to have the medicine and not just the people that can afford it. We want it to be able to going around the world so everybody can get it. Just the idea of these corporations in like they spending billions of dollars on R&D to like create medication that does cure illnesses and save lives, that still is a thing. Medicine is still actually a good thing that we should probably support. It's the commodification. Yes, it's the capitalism. That's the problem. But these dumb fuck Hollywood actors like Woody Harrelson can't grasp this. Oh, they want us all to stay in their homes and take their and force us to take their medicine. Just because, over 1 million people died in the United States. How many people have died over the last 3 years? And even the people that didn't die. People talk about the COVID mortality rate. Many people are permanently disabled. And even the people that did get it and recovered, like me, I don't think I have permanent issues from it. I don't know. I might. I don't know. It's still fucking miserable, though. It was miserable. Bad medicine, do you mean weed? I see people with them for in their profiles publishing the same anti-vax stuff as these people trying to get them to parse it in their heads and nobody's challenging them. It makes no sense. Yeah, and The Economist, where did all these workers go? Jesus Christ, why can't we get anyone to work anymore? And then people take that. Like I remember during the trucker convoy, all those kind of like LaRouchites coming in here and being like, oh, you're supporting big pharma. And really, these are the brave heroes that like they're being asked to take medicine to maybe slow down or limit some of the terrible effects of this pandemic. They're the brave heroes we should be supporting. And you're supporting big pharma. Jesus. Just one sec. Your big pharma stance has brought you all the way down this path where you're just like, medicine bad. That's your takeaway. If anything, big pharma wants people sick post-COVID. Big money in that. Well, that's the thing, and that's why they fought tooth and nail to hold on to the IP over the vaccines. Rather than opening it up and getting everyone around the world, or as many people as possible, vaccinated, it's actually way better to have the whole world be this big fucking petri dish where you get endless new variants and endless new illnesses that you then have to get people to pay money for the cure for. That's the scam. That's the evil big pharma scam that's going on. Not just the idea that they made a vaccine to a potentially deadly illness. That's the thing that confused me about Max's turn. Does he no longer support China and Cuba's vaccination programs? I mean, I feel like I remember him talking about the COVID-0 lockdowns in China. After praising it at one point, then going around to being like, oh, it's terrible that they're doing that. Because then it's not even ideological. It's literally just about trying to appeal to those conservative reactionary groups. Like, that's all it is. It's not even about any kind of coherent ideology. It's just like, let's try and appeal as much as possible to these very reactionary, anti-vax groups that are organizing these big, like, anti-lockdown protests and the convoys and what have you. Early on, a lib friend expressed surprise that a radical like you agreeing with the state. I told them I didn't agree with the state agreed with me. That's a good way of looking at it. And again, it's not that you support Pfizer or any of these massive companies who do and have done many evil things, but the evil thing that they're doing with these vaccines is charging money for them. Not just the fact that they're creating the medicine in the first place. Medicine just doesn't become bad because it's being sold by these massive pharmacological oligarchies. It doesn't mean the concept of medicine is bad. I'm gonna have to make some coffee. I've had trouble trying to explain this to people. Well, it's just designed to make you so confused. It's just like, you know, like it's the same thing with the exact same people that are doing this anti-war stuff now. And they're like, what's saying? So you support war? You support NATO? And it's like, no, I don't. But I also don't agree with what you're doing, which is like trying to organize this anti-war movement and making these overt appeals to like transphobes, anti-vaxxers, and reactionaries. You know, the anti-war movement should be inclusive and progressive. And I don't support, no matter, even if I might agree with certain foreign policy goals, when you're at your anti-war rally, taking that time to like rail against trans people in sports or whatever. I don't think you're actually doing anything to help build a anti-war movement. What does that have to do with anything? If you want to build an inclusive movement, why shouldn't you be including trans people in that? Why are you limiting that? Why are you putting up these barricades around it? and appealing to these reactionary groups that are extremely alienating to people. So it's the same thing. What you do? So you support NATO? Oh, you support Pfizer? You support big pharma? While they're out there like trying to court these reactionary movements. That's how they fucking confuse the hell out of you. Don't laugh. That's right, Sin Chow. God damn. And again, that's why I still continue upholding Lenin, because Lenin outlined all these things over 100 years ago. A century ago, this guy was completely ending all these arguments and discussions, and we're still having the same problems. Eventually we'll get it. That's right. Eventually. One of these days. Eventually we're going to figure this out. Oh, shit. Sorry. I think I may make some coffee. I didn't have coffee this morning because I was like so late getting up because I felt like shit. So got up too late to kind of make my morning coffee and then didn't have it and just had my Diet Coke, and the caffeine has done nothing for me. The caffeine has done absolutely nothing for me. My family literally ran from London. It makes me so sad. They buried their wealth in the potato fields to live like peasants in America. That is sad. It is sad because like it would be really cool. We live in such a fucking, I feel like I'm leaning so hard on the concept of alienation, but we live in such an alienating society, and this like we've just been so relentlessly atomized and individualized, and we have no like sense of community anymore. No sense of social solidarity whatsoever. It's just been completely beaten out of us. And I think sometimes about like psychologically how it would feel to like live in one of these revolutionary societies where you all feel that you're like working towards some common purpose, Like that's got to be like considering that's so foreign to the way that we live today. So contrary, this idea that we're all working together, we're all looking out for one another, we're building something new and fantastic together. That maybe we won't even see the result of it, Maybe it's going to be our kids and our kids' kids that are going to see the actual result of the work that we're doing. But to be able to give your life this sense of meaning beyond just like, I would want to have a house in the suburbs and a car and to go on vacation a couple weeks a year. And like, that's all you think about. We're actually trying to create something beautiful together. It must have been exciting to live in a society like that, or it must be, even if it's not always easy, which I don't think anyone would suggest that it is. In Soviet Russia, certainly, or in China from the 70s to today, you know? It's not that it's easy, but just this sense that we're sort of creating something. What did Sankara say about this? This great quote. I'm reading finishing Vijay Prashad, the Washington Bullets. I'm trying to find the exact quote. I found the short quote, but there's a longer one. Yeah, this. This Sankara quote is so fucking great. Because you cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain amount of madness. In this case, it comes from nonconformity. The courage to turn your back on the old formulas. The courage to invent the future. It took the madmen of yesterday for us to be able to act with extreme clarity today. I want to be one of those madmen. We must dare to invent the future. You know, what future are we inventing right now? Does anyone feel hope? Does anyone feel positivity about the future, where our society is going and where our culture is going? Anyone? Anyone at all? Even people that believe in this shit? Only when the little treats show up at my door. After that, back to empty. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to click a little button on your phone and then 30 minutes later there's some Korean chicken sitting on your front door. That's pretty cool. And then once you eat it, once it's over, you go right back to We need a productive national economy, a project, goddamn. Build some rails, green infrastructure, wetland reclamation. Imagine that kind of jobs program. Seriously, we've been talking about the building rail. The high-speed rail. How not only would that unite the whole country just in terms of bringing people together, but it's a jobs program, right? Put people to work building something special for future generations to use. Not just rail, but all green infrastructure. There's lots of work to be done. There's plenty to do. You know? We could be spending our time and energy working on these things. Building something. Rather than feeling hopeless about the future. Rather than feeling totally hopeless about the constant decline that we're on. If we were actually going out every day and building something. Trying to invent the future, like Sankara said. Creating something for our kids and for our grandkids. People in need of a dash of hope should join the book club this evening. We're reading Vijay Prashad's Red Star Over the Third World. I'd like to read, I'm going to finish Washington Bullets soon, and I would like to get that one next. I'm almost finished. I pledged to read 5 books this year, and I'm almost finished Washington Bullets, and it's so short. And I read the first chunk of it in the first week of January. I could have been done it weeks ago, but I am almost finished that. I'll be 1 book down. And then I'll move on either to Nixon Land or maybe to the Lasordo biography, which we don't need to reference the name of right now. I don't want rail. My kids should suffer like I do. I mean, you joke, Greasy Groob 69. You joke, but that's literally the attitude that people have in our culture. You see this a lot in Britain. Anytime any politician like Jeremy Corbyn, whoever else in Britain is we should try and do something better. We should try to make our people's lives better. And you have these British boomers who didn't even live through World War II, but think that they did because of movies, right? They didn't even live through that. In fact, they had everything handed to them, but they think that they lived through this struggle. And they're, or whenever student loan forgiveness comes up, I had to live through, it was freezing cold every winter. We didn't have any insulation. And I turned out all right. And that's the reaction. Rather than like, things should be better than what you, even if that is true, things should be better for future generations. But that's the thing. A lot of these people, not only did they not suffer, but they kind of pretend that they did. They get confused with their parents' generation. And then they insist that any effort to like make things better for future generations is like some inherently terrible thing. You did not turn all right, bruv. No, you did not. I have no empathy for it. That's right. That's the attitude. Even though Joe Biden's not a boomer, he's the ultimate boomer president. That's the ultimate boomer mindset. I have no empathy for it. Give me a break. Oh, you want us to wear masks? How come we never wear masks during flu season, huh? Yeah, you could have done better. You could have not had the flu if you had just worn masks. Or just made just like a small iota of effort to like control that. Whenever my boomer uncle says we saved France's ass in World War II, I'm like, motherfucker, who's we? You didn't do shit. Uncle Wave? You didn't do shit. These communists are trying to force convenient, accessible living on me. What if I want to drive 30 minutes to the nearest grocery store? What about freedom? That's right, Lady Cenobite. We've been looking at some of those people saying like literally that. I want to send my kids to school 45 minutes away so we can sit in traffic. That's my goddamn right to sit in traffic 45 minutes a day. What if I want lead in my paint? Or like the health measures stuff. I want to be coughing and I want everyone getting bacteria all over me. That's how we do things. That's how we're supposed to do things. I love when we're all on the bus together and we're all hacking away on each other and spitting and coughing and getting all our gross germs and bacteria all over the place. I'm rolling coal. And now the PMC talks about how commuting is self-care, actually. My God, the contradictions are sharpening. Jesus. Real men get used to the disease. It's my goddamn right to have microplastics in my bloodstream. No, that's true. They don't. As soon as I said buses, it's like, well, that's the thing. It's only in theory. They're like, I want to be on the bus and getting germs everywhere, but they're not the ones that take the fucking bus, though. Because when you suggest that maybe you should take the bus to get around, they think that you're like going to come and take away their trucks.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Back in the warmth of the friendship triangle.
Thank you, Up the Reds, for the 13 months, Tier 1. Happy to have you back. Thank you. Yeah. So like that's our culture now. That's like what we teach people. This is how they turn out. And the idea of like living in a society where we had the opposite viewpoint. That we were trying to work together. We were trying to make life easier for our neighbors and for future generations. I really do think liberalism is buckling under the contradictions between capitalism and science. I mean, there's part of that as well, but it's like, that's what makes me concerned about the rise of fascism, though, because at the same time that liberalism is buckling, they're doubling or tripling or quadrupling down on anti-communism now. Right? They're punching left even harder. The more and more that they lose their grip, they punch left even harder. Liz Warren wants those mom and pop MIC contractors. That was a great tweet. That was a great tweet. We need to enable the independent mom and pop weapons manufacturers. She famously in the Democratic primary too, she was like, we need to green the military. The US military is one of the primary emitters of carbon. So, and you're waiting for her to say yes. So we need to make sure we have green energy in our imperialist war machine. And you're like, so close. So close. Almost had it. Almost had it, but not quite. She's going to be hurting for takes now with McElwee in the clink. Oh. I'm having rich chili for lunch. That's good. Chili is rich. Very good. Well, this has been a fun little Monday morning catch-up. Not the kind of ketchup you have in your boxed mac and cheese. Where we're catching up with one another. And I feel great. I feel great about it. I'm feeling that sense of revolutionary optimism. Yes, that's right. Ketchup and mac. That's right. Do you have a problem with that? Dude Zoot? Is that a problem for you? Anti-chupper spotted. Lodan, I know you loved your chupped mac as well. Don't try and deny it. Warren's tweet yesterday was literally only about small arms manufacturers should get contracts too so they can thrive. And one of her fans wrote a 25 tweet screed with the headcanon idea of what she really means and why it's good for us. Is it one of the ones with the Holocaust tattoos? One of the multiple Warren staffers with the Holocaust tattoos? Remember there was multiple white supremacist tattoo controversies following the Warren campaign? One of the multiple. Me chupping my mac and cheese. Up yours, woke moralists. That's right. This is really the amazing thing about that. Like, it's not just, like, when you look at this image here. This image. Like... It's the gang tattoo on the head first, like with that writing and with like the blood and soil like reference. It's that, but it's this as well. This is what, because this one is on multiple levels. It's this as well. The picture behind. Blood and teeth, yeah, because it's a reference to some quote that Warren said when she was going to get really tough on one of these, like, corporate guys. We're going to leave all the blood and teeth on the floor or something. Yeah, it's the picture. It's the gang style tattoo and the picture behind. For sure, Lady Cenobite, for sure. There's no, like, come on. That can't be a coincidence. Come on. You know? Big structural Lebensraum. Like, Jesus Christ. I still like my Wonk Life belly tattoo.
You
Well,
can
that's
count
cool.
on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Carrier Wave, for the gifted sub. Thank you. Realizing too, like we're coming up on, you know, it's really hard to believe, but we're going to come up on like the Republican primary is going to start soon. Can you believe that? We're going to start getting into US election season again. It's about to get nuts. It's about to heat up again. For sure. I'm just warning you now, I'm going to have no choice but to talk about it. I'm going to have no choice, you know? I'm going to have no choice but to dive into the ridiculousness of it. Yeah, and we're going to have this stuff with Pete, whether they're going to try and challenge Biden. We're going to have to talk about all that, even though we know it's all a farce, right? We know that, but we're going to have to talk about it. Meatball Ron, of course. Meatball Ron. We love a spectacle. And that's the thing. It's like, and I have to try and balance being able to do like quality commentary that I think is like helpful or useful, quality analysis, with also trying to like build an audience on this channel and elsewhere. And that's going to be, I'm going to have to do that. Like I really leaned into in the last election cycle being like a Bernie guy. It occurred to me like early on in that process that like I can actually be like one of the more visible on Twitter anyways, like Bernie Sanders people. And I just said to myself, like in 2019 or whatever it was, I'm just going to lean into that. I'm going to lean into that, whatever the consequence. And it was crazy. I don't think I'm going to be that involved in any kind of new, any of these arguments. I don't think I'm ever going to like stan a U.S. politician ever again, you know? But I am going to have to end up talking about these things just from a purely cynical marketing campaign of trying to build the audience of this show. This is a great way of looking at it, Lady Cenobite. On the one hand, I hate electoral politics. On the other hand, it's like the dumbest sport in the world, and it can have devastating effects on our lives, which is fun. It's impossible to look away from. We could join K-Hive as a bit. Yeah. I'm going to have to do it. Is AOC old enough to run? But like, even I think she might be, but what have we seen from AOC over the last few years that makes you think that she's going to like actively challenge the Democratic Party establishment in any way, you know? Like, I guess you could argue that she did by supporting Bernie, and they kind of got owned. And since that time, she's been like completely on board, supporting basically the establishment of the party and getting things like committee assignments and getting kind of like some institutional support from the party in exchange. But is she really going to like challenge that party hierarchy again? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think the election is without consequence, but it's obnoxious how many people limit their political actions to just that. For sure, and that's by design in our system, right? That's how you're allowed to engage politically, like in election season, and then when that's finished, you elect the people to do their jobs and go to Congress and deal with the stuff, and then you can just check out. No, we know that, Old Dutch. You don't have to rectify that. We know you're not an AOC stan. It's worth still asking about these questions. Obviously, we're all big Tulsi supporters, so that is true. Yeah. I mean, you can really see. Hi, King Hancho. What is that?
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Showing Nazi tats on stream right after the day of hate? Wow.
Thank you, really chill guy, for the 27 months tier 1. Thank you. I was just saying too, it's not even the tattoo, it's the picture behind. Like, it's just like, you know? Old Dutch is an AOC stan. I mean, it's funny for me to have like the last 4 or 5 years of my paying attention to politics just so meticulously documented in podcasting and stuff. Because I started off being very excited by that, by Bernie Sanders and by the idea of having like more progressive members of Congress. I mean, just if you've been watching the Democratic Party for a long time, seeing someone like AOC or Ilhan Omar in the Congress was like a huge change. Like, they're significantly more progressive than I think what used to count as being progressive or leftist within the Democratic Party. And you've seen this process of the last 5 years of me being into this idea. Yeah, you just filled the Democratic Party with these kinds of progressive forces, and then you take over the party, no problem. And then you steer it in this different direction. Or did it with the NDP or any of these kind of bourgeois parties. You just fill them with good people. It takes a while. It's a process. There's wins and losses in there. You get enough of those people in there, and then you can change things. But I think it's been over the last 5 years of paying attention to these things, just kind of slowly becoming disillusioned with this and seeing how people become changed by the establishment of these parties and not the opposite thing happening. The more closer that they get to those levers of power, the more it changes them and the more they compromise. AOC was very reticent to team up with Bernie from the very beginning. I was offer. Well, there was the whole thing Sinchal as well, where like, I don't know if any of this is true, because like I always thought it was cool that AOC, endorsed Bernie, and then even when Bernie had a heart attack and his campaign could have been over, but still stuck with him after that. I always thought that was really cool. But I remember hearing something about they grew AOC in the Pete Lab. It was just down the hall, right? It's the more progressive version. I remember hearing though that they had this big like falling out inside the campaign over Bernie going on Joe Rogan. And then that's why over the last couple of weeks of the campaign, you didn't see AOC really doing all that much, because they were like all pissed off about Bernie going on Joe Rogan. Oh no. It's like, you're trying to like challenge these very powerful people in the Democratic Party, and that's the thing that is like, no, it's way too far for me. Yeah, I hate Rogan too, but there's no way. No, Bernie should not have turned that down. It's like, that was ridiculous. That whole argument. Bernie was not going on Rogan and endorsing all of Rogan's terrible views. In fact, he was making a very convincing argument about why his policies were the best policies to this massive audience of people that aren't necessarily plugged into the Democratic Party machine. Yeah, that's right, Lodane. And the idea that like that caused such a rift in the campaign that they were like, we can't be associated with this. We can't be associated with this. Really? Like, that's the... Yeah, half of those people listened to Rogan for like the first 300 episodes. No, and he wasn't totally mask off. I think the whole pandemic has been more of a masking off for Rogan as well, where he's embraced a lot of these more reactionary viewpoints. He's going to make Rogan Secretary of State. That was just, that whole argument I remember was just, I felt so silly. It was so stupid. It's like you're trying to win an election. No, you obviously turn down the most popular podcast in the world, where you had all these like, oh no, I know all these like Democratic establishment types, Pete, and then, you know, they were all pitching, they're all trying to get on Rogan, and Rogan wouldn't have them. So naturally, then when Bernie gets on, they're like, how? We would never go on Joe Rogan. It's like, obviously they fucking would. Obviously, if you're trying to win an election campaign, it's a good idea to probably go and sit down with the most listened to podcast in the world to try and make your case to the host and its audience, you know? This is a new article positing that COVID was developed by Pentagon and the CIA. Well, I have seen up the Reds that new renewed talk of like the lab leak theory, where I guess the Department of Energy, the U.S. Department of Energy now is saying that it came from like some kind of a lab leak. And my stance on that always has been like, I think that's probably an unlikely scenario. If it was developed in a lab, I firmly believe that that lab was being paid for by the CIA and the Pentagon. There's no doubt if that is indeed the origin, then that's where I believe it came from. Anyway, it was just very funny that was the thing that caused all this discord apparently within the Bernie campaign. And that AOC, after endorsing Bernie, kind of really trying to go against the establishment of the party, still staying with Bernie even after he had a heart attack and his campaign may have been over. But then being like, whoa, going on Joe Rogan is just a bridge too far here. That's just way too much. I can't possibly support this. Yeah, Obama made the calls to shank Bernie. Of course, it was the Democratic Party establishment, and that's why they were going up against that establishment and coming close to beating them, to taking them down, and they needed all hands on deck, not to be thrown into disarray over the last couple of weeks of the campaign because Bernie went on the most popular podcast in the fucking world to talk about why rich people should pay more taxes. I remember feeling so confident when Pete was dropping out. I was like, they're all dropping out, like dropping like flies, these losers. And then when that strategy totally worked to deliver Super Tuesday to Biden, just like, that was my face on Super Tuesday. It's actually interesting because I went on vacation in March of... Yeah, right before the pandemic started. Sorry, my timeline got messed up there. Right before the pandemic, in March 2020, I went on vacation with my family to upstate New York, and I watched Super Tuesday there, which now is 3 years ago. And we're actually going there. We're going back there to the same place. My kid's been asking about it for years now, so we're going back there next week, which will be a funny kind of full circle moment. Well, that's what I'm saying, Lode. We're getting into election season. Let me see if I can find. I'm looking for a tweet of mine. From this is so weird. The Nevada win was the last time I felt hope. I know, I remember that. I remember that. And I was very confident at that time about what was about to happen. Look, here's me, March 2nd, 2020. The day before Super Tuesday. How are we feeling? And here's my how I signed off. Tomorrow will be a great day. And I remember I was watching the Super Tuesday results come in just like this. Narrator, it was not in fact a great day. No, it was not. It was very, very bad. Lodane was also a sucker. A lot of us got. I don't think we should feel bad for feeling a sense of hope, okay? I don't think we should feel guilt or regret for feeling a small sense of optimism. But then we have to remember that it's the United States of America and just no good things don't happen there. And that's just something that I've accepted now. That was so bad, though. God. So that's it. We're getting into election season again. We're a couple months away from it really kicking into overdrive. Shit's about to get weird again. But like I was saying, hopefully, and for everyone in the community as well, hopefully we can spin it to our benefit and grow this community with our dialectical and materialist analysis of these events. And we can endure all that. We will be together, right? It's going to get crazy. It's going to get weird, and we're going to be together. We're going to get through this together. All right? We got Trump zingers incoming. The McDonald's the other day was just the foreshadowing of that. Yeah, we got a year and a half until the actual elections, but got to ramp up for this fall when things go crazy and there are 10 candidates spread across the thinnest margins. This is what I mean. Yeah, there's going to be a Republican primary. There's going to be some kind of challenge towards Biden, probably whether it's from Marianne Williamson or whether there's a more serious challenge. You know, we know that there's people in the Democratic Party establishment that would rather pass the baton to Pete or whoever else, but we've just seen them repeat. We've seen both Pete and Kamala and Beto and everyone else that they've tried to set up as the successor to the Bidens of the world completely fall flat over the last 4 years, repeatedly. Well, and Lodane, to what you're saying too, I think that's a really, especially when you're talking about Marianne Williamson, I think that's like a lot of these fucking guys, they're all evangelical Christians. So it's like, I think holding up Marianne like she's some kind of kook and then just accepting the rest of these absolute fucking lunatics in the Republican primary that are all, they're deeply in this like fucking reactionary cult, religious cult at the same time, I think is a little bit messed up. I think it's one of the things that makes Marriott kind of interesting. Literally the most uncharismatic, shambling, sleepwalking, do-nothing centrists either. Well, that's the amazing thing, too, because you see them, like, you see the Democratic Party establishment trying to, like, appoint these folks and be like, what's going on? Why isn't this connecting with anyone? Why isn't this connecting with anyone? It's so strange. But it's because, like, they're not trying to make anyone's lives better. You know, they're neoliberals. All they're capable of doing is managing people's expectations downwards, and using kind of progressive language to explain to people why they don't deserve good things. That's actually why I liked Amy Klobuchar a lot, because Klobuchar didn't fuck around with any of this, like the platitudes. She's just like, no, we're not going to have social programs, or no, you don't deserve to have good things. We can't afford it. She doesn't like try to mess it around with the inspiring rhetoric or that kind of thing. She's just like, no, you don't deserve to have good things. Cloud low-key goated when throwing staplers is the vibe. That's true. Yeah. Now give me my salad. She was just a naked, power-hungry narcissist. It was actually kind of refreshing, yeah. And she was right there on the front lines of the whole Ukraine thing as well. She was over there with John McCain and Lindsey Graham, hanging out with the Azov guys before it was cool. She was hanging out with Azov and promising them endless arms transfers before it was cool. And you like that? I guess I don't like it, but I find it refreshing. You know, when you come from the Pete Buttigieg, like McKinsey school of like neoliberalism, and you have this kind of like marketing campaign approved rhetoric about trying to inspire people while not ever promising things to make their lives better or their material conditions better in any way. Or Kamala Harris or whoever, that I find so phony. I might not agree with someone like a Klobuchar, but I at least admire the ways that she doesn't try to couch any of her neoliberalism in this kind of like inspiring rhetoric. You know, I at least respect that. It's nice not to be gaslit. That's right. If you don't think people deserve to have good things, just say that. We hate it, but it's honest. That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's like, why aren't young people responding to this? You know, what about Beto? He rides a skateboard around. What about Pete? He's a young guy. They use the inspiring rhetoric. Why don't people respond to this? It's like they're not saying anything. They're certainly not trying to challenge power in any meaningful way that's going to improve people's lives. You know, so of course people don't like it. People see through this shit. It's very actually obvious. Tomorrow will be a great day, everyone. God damn. As I've said many times, I do my punditry from the heart, folks. I do my punditry from the heart. Where is it, Pete? Has it been taken off of YouTube? Where is it, Pete? Where's the gymnasium ad? Where is it? Come on. You know, again, you fucking know. This whole thing about the high school gym, you know that this was like, you can go back to, there's some McKinsey consultant that had a little deck, a little PowerPoint presentation saying like, so when Mr. Buttigieg gives his speech, we'll shut off the lights. He'll have it'll be this viral moment, right? It'll be this viral moment. And then he's connecting with people in the dark using the light from the phones, and we've got all the quips lined up already. Here you can choose 3. You can choose 3 of these quips. We've come up with a whole list of them. Yeah, exactly. Manufacturing the birdie moment. Absolutely.
Like they used to, and justices ought to be able to retire like they used to, and
oh my, oh what? What's this? I guess I'll just have to talk without a microphone.
Can you hear me if I'm just loud? Thanks for the hug. Appreciate it. Thank you. With your help, we're gonna make it happen. All right.
Oh.
What can I say? Thank you.
You know that some McKinsey consultant came up with that, and there was a whole pitch. There was a whole meeting with a whole team of people as it went up the chain. Yeah, they had a slide of the Bernie moment with the bird. You know, we need one of the moments like this viral, spontaneous, and you can just drop the microphone and he's just talking with people. You know. When the lights went out, I was scared. Then I heard Pete's voice, and I wasn't afraid anymore. That's right. It's just so painstakingly obvious. You can hear the wide grin when he says, "Uh-oh." It's so fucking great. Oh my God. I'm actually coming around on this. I must admit, I started this segment to make fun of this, and I kind of like it. It's kind of making me happy. It's just so brazen. It's so brazen.
Justices ought to be able to retire like they used to, and
Ooh. What?
Wow.
Oh fuck. That's wonderful. I mean, it's just so brazen. That's why I have to respect it, you know? And here's the New York Times headline. You can't fake those kinds of skills. Pete Buttigieg's charisma test. And then remember the whole thing with the shadow app?
Computer to mark up the size of the account.
Remember his interview with a team of journalists at a newspaper's. Dude slayed him and Pete squirmed lol.
Oh yeah, that was a classic. You were fixing bread prices. And Pete was like, but okay. You were fixing bread prices, Clarice. That was just so great. And then there's Iowa, remember? And we're all going into Iowa being like, this is the moment. This is when it kicks off. Bernie's going to crush it in Iowa. Then the press is going to have no choice but to talk about him being the front runner. And the whole thing with like the shadow app and all the controversy about that. And then the Pete Buttigieg Iowa speech. Remember? We just shocked the world. We're really going on a little trip down memory lane here, aren't we? Oh, I was seething as well. I was at my house just watching this going like, Yeah, Kamala's father was a radical leftist as well, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the song does mention Manifest Destiny. The lyrics are very disturbing, especially in this context.
Thank you. What a night. Because tonight, an improbable hope became an undeniable reality.
It is deniable, sir. It is deniable. It also shows Bernie's, I think, he wasn't ready for them to play as dirty with him as they did, right? Bernie could have just gone and declared victory, and should have. Bernie should have gone out there at the exact time that he was planning to go out and just given his victory speech. But then by like, whoa, let's wait till we get all the results, and then you just leave the opportunity for this fucking rat to come in there.
So we don't know all the results. But we know by the time it's all said and done, Iowa, you have shocked the nation.
This motherfucker. I swear to God, all of this is on the same PowerPoint, right? All of this is on the Pete campaign 2020 PowerPoint. It was the song, the dance, the thing with the gym was in there, and the shadow app in Iowa. That was all part of the same presentation, right? It's all the same kind of narrative. I understand the strat was to be the gay white Obama, but he just can't deliver the authenticity. It feels so saccharine. Well, I mean, it speaks to how, as much as I dislike Obama as a person and a political figure, incredibly talented communicator, right? And people, he does come, even today, even knowing the reality of what Obama is, still comes across as being like authentic and relatable to people. You can't fake that though. And Pete doesn't have it. He doesn't have the ability. He's not a good enough actor to actually have that like relatability. You know, so it just does. Yeah, he just doesn't. He can't pull it off. He can't pull off that authenticity.
Because by all indications, we are going on to New Hampshire victorious.
Brazen. Look at this shit-eating grin too. Look at this guy. I'm not going to watch this whole thing though. It's just funny doing this little like trip down memory lane here. Considering how many of us, I know I've come a long way politically since this time, and all of this was so deeply radicalizing, this whole period, this whole Democratic primary. Right after the Corbyn thing too, right after the Corbyn and Johnson election, followed immediately by the Democratic primary. And it was like, holy shit, whatever idea that I had in my mind that like this kind of entryism in these parties was like a possibility just got completely like beaten out of me through this like paying such close attention to this process. I love a little last episode on American presidential politics. You know, it's funny to look back on this stuff, you know, because I was so deeply plugged into this, and I know a lot of you were as well. And I know, just like me, a lot of you have left this moment feeling very confused and isolated and angry. And the last 3 years since this has been this process of trying to find the answers to like why we were feeling this way. What happened here? What is going on? Like, what does it mean to like make political change in our society? You know, these are questions that don't have easy answers. But when you look at certain books and theories, you realize the answers are there. What is to be done? That's right. That's the question we were all asking after this moment. When was this, anyways? This is over 3 years ago now. It was February, right? It's like just coming up on 3 years ago. No, a little over. It's February 3rd. February 3rd. (2020) really was the Dems trying to be like, do you want a gay Obama, a woman Obama, Midwestern Obama? We got all kinds of different Obamas. It's true. Are you in Iowa, Lennon Smash? Or like you're actually at the caucuses? All right. Yeah, seriously, carrier wave. January 2020 was the Soleimani assassination. Right to the president. It's been this fucking roller coaster. It's funny to look back on this, though. It really is. I was watching this absolutely seething. Absolutely seething. But Jordan knocked on doors in other states, and that's one thing I regret. I wish I had taken more time to do that. I had an invite to go to New Hampshire to knock on doors for Bernie, and I would have loved to go to Vegas. I know Jordan was down in Vegas, and a number of other people were knocking doors in Vegas, and I wish I had gone to do it. You know, I have regret about not being able to be a part of that. Yeah, the Hawaii nuclear test thing too. That's a callback.
You know, 1 year ago, it was in the deep freeze of an Iowa January where we began this unlikely journey to win the American presidency. We weren't well known, but we had a new idea. The idea that at this moment when Washington...
No, I don't think that's cynical at all, Lodane.
...from our everyday lives, a middle-class mayor from the American Midwest could carry the voices of the American people all the way to the American Capitol and make sure they're actually heard.
It's a nice story, isn't it? It's a nice story. That's all it is, though, a story. It's funny, too, because you can look up all these events and you can find all my corresponding tweets because I was so obsessed with all of it. You can find all my corresponding tweets to any of these events. Mayor Cheat. It's giving Harry Styles. This doesn't happen to people like me. That's right. These McKinsey-trained CIA assets, you know, just going from these unlikely beginnings. These unlikely beginnings. No one ever thought that a deeply connected servant of imperialism could ever be put in this position and never be just fucking handed a multi-million-dollar, media campaign to promote the fact that I was a viable candidate. Earned media, a multi-million-dollar earned media campaign that I had nothing, that was based on no actual skills or observable talents that I had. Who would have thought that someone could ever get that? Someone of my stature. I've met real life people that were excited about Pete, about Beto, and even Klob. Still never met a single person that was like, yeah, Biden's my first choice above everyone else. No one believed that. No one.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Happy Mintiversary TRRS.
Alana, thank you very much for the 21 months. Tier 2. So close, Alana. So close. So close to the highly elite, highly exclusive TRRS 2-year sub badge. Uh-oh. look, folks, look at this. Ooh. 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 Oh my gosh. No one wanted Biden. No one. Which is hilarious that all these like Biden bros emerged afterwards. It was so surprising. Woo. Oh man. I just want the golden badge already. It's very close. Very soon, Alana. Very soon. I don't know how much more you want to reminisce on this. And the whole reason I started talking about it was because I was just like realizing how close we are to election season again. Like, I think I hadn't really been thinking about it that much. Like, they were just the midterms because it's America, though. You have at least a year. It starts basically at like a year before the actual election and a little bit sooner, really. You got a good 18 months run up before the election starts. That counts as election season. It's just really hard to believe considering how like life-changing this whole situation was for me. That we're back into it again. We're getting back into the shit. But remember, folks, we're going to be able to deal with all the insanity. One thing we didn't have in the previous election cycle. We didn't have a little program that airs every single day on twitch.tv known as TRRS. And we're going to be able to come here and feel less insane. And we're going to have the correct analysis. And we're going to be able to watch all the insanity and enjoy it and also commiserate. We didn't have anyone to talk us through all this. You had a couple people, but not as good, though. There is a few people talking you through it, but not as good, though. It started at McDonald's last week. that was great. God. What's your specialty? I gotta say, I know this menu a lot better than anyone here. I wonder what fucking disaster will befall us between now and then. Well, that's the thing. We'll see if World War III spirals out of control. If someone had told me slub to rib in 2020, I would have simply said, those words make absolutely no sense, sir. That's right. And they wouldn't. They wouldn't. It does seem like, and we're gonna take a look at this actually. You know what? I'm gonna take just a little short break, and then we'll take a look at like what I wanted to get into today. But we're gonna talk about how I think there is starting to be attitude in the U.S. establishment to wind down Russia and Ukraine, so it is finished up by the time the election rolls around. We'll see if that happens. We'll see if these Azov guys are going to even accept that outcome. But I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the Chinese peace plan that they were offering. And I want to talk about this whole storyline about China interfering in Canadian democracy. Which I'm starting to think, it's starting to seem like Trudeau is almost starting to be targeted by, I don't know if you want to call it the Canadian deep state. It does seem like the security state in Canada is trying to subvert. If anything, they blame China for doing it, but it does seem like there's a campaign going right now to like screw over Trudeau. And I must give critical support. No, I don't have to do that, but we can talk about it and laugh about it though. Getting caught in a web of his own xenophobia. That's right. So let me just take a little break, okay? I'm going to take a little break. I might put on some coffee or something. It's 2:12. It's time's 2 hours into this thing already. Time's really flying by. I'll take a little break. I'll put on my VHS ad if anyone wants to subscribe to the show. If you're a new viewer or if you're a lurker or a non-sub, I'll put together this little presentation so you know what this channel is about and what the community is about. Please subscribe to the channel to keep this commentary on the air. Help me make the number go up. Help me make the line go up. Okay? Subscribe to the channel. I'll take a short break. I'll come back and we'll talk about more of the main thing that I want to talk about. We'll got plenty of time to talk about the 2024 United States presidential election. This is just a brief trip down memory lane here. So anyway, please subscribe. If you want to know what TRRS or the Friendship Triangle community is about, this is what it is. Here you go.
Thank you for expressing interest in the Friendship Triangle community. We would be thrilled to have you on board as a member of our exclusive platform. As you may know, the Friendship Triangle is Twitch's only two-dimensional, triangle-shaped, friendship access and trickle-down clout, tiered reward system. Today you have an amazing opportunity to join the base level of the Friendship Triangle system. Once you are part of the community, you'll have the ability to rise through the ranks and achieve higher levels of access and rewards. One way to do this is by gifting subscriptions to your fellow members or by inviting your friends and family members to join our community. As you ascend the tiers, you will be exposed to a range of new and exciting benefits, such as exclusive content, advanced features, and access to our elite community members. We are confident that you will enjoy all the perks that come with being part of the Friendship Triangle. However, we also want to remind you that not all friends and family members are to be trusted, especially those who may not support your new lifestyle. That's why we encourage you to focus on building meaningful relationships within our community, where
I'm
you
just
will
staying
find
for a moment in case anyone wants to
individuals who
subscribe.
share your interests and values. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We are always here to support our members and ensure that your experience with the Friendship Triangle is enjoyable. We're glad that you are considering joining the Friendship Triangle community. We look forward to seeing you rise through the Chaos Zone and all the way into the Elite tier. It's not a cult.
There you go. So if you're considering subscribing to the channel, if you don't know what this community is about, if you want to be part of this community, that's what the Friendship Triangle is. That's what the Friendship Triangle system is about. Please subscribe. It helps me keep this content on the air. This community wouldn't exist without our very generous community members. And I appreciate you all very much. Everyone that helps keep this content machine running. I'll be back in just a moment, okay? I'm back. Hello. Hello. Myself a little brighter here. I've got to do manual brightness adjustments now. I unslubbed my family and friends for the triangle, and I do it again in a heartbeat. Thank you, Praxid. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, Johnny, I did get your message, actually. Let me try and figure out a time. Okay? Because like I said, next week I'm not going to be around as much. I will find a time to be able to come on because I would really enjoy coming on to talk to you. So I should transition to what we wanted to talk about today, which is this ongoing story about China subverting Canadian democracy, which just won't go away. It was the source of like that whole controversy with Trudeau when he got dressed down by President Xi in that kind of very funny moment that we had a nice laugh at. But this story won't go away. And I want to take a look at what Canadian media is saying about it. And I would also just like to watch more videos because I'm tired and don't really feel like yapping away too much here. Too much more than I already have. Here we go. I personally believe everything CSIS tells us. That's the number one thing about any of these reports that you've seen, no matter where it is. That's where all the sources are literally just these journalists writing down what their contacts in CSIS or the security state tell them to write. So let's see. Let's see what the fine folks in the Canadian media establishment are saying about this. Where does this go? Let's see what the fine folks in the Canadian media establishment are saying about this very important and serious story.
Explosive allegations about how and who China used to interfere in Canada's federal elections. Is it time for a public inquiry? I'm Mercedes Stevenson. Welcome to the West Block.
Thank you, Sean.
Intelligence leaks are raising questions. Was the Prime Minister's office warned about a Liberal MP and a Liberal fundraiser whose sources say CSIS was watching?
Who are these
Canada is
sources?
sending more military aid to Ukraine as the country marks 1 year since Russia's invasion. But is the government doing enough to boost the capabilities?
Mercedes is
of
going
the
to hit us with the
Canadian
hard
armed
facts
forces
here.
Here at home, we'll ask the minister.
Yeah, the cadence, it's like newscast. It's really that like J-school newscaster voice, isn't it? Election interference stories. It does sound familiar. That's right. And prepare to hear a lot more of this. This is probably a warm up talking about the coming American electoral season. This kind of thing with China is probably just a warm up. The whole Russiagate thing was kind of a primer. I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot about this subject in both Canada and the United States.
Intelligence sources allege that a sitting Liberal member of
Intelligence
Parliament
sources.
is a witting affiliate of the Chinese government's attempts to interfere in Canadian elections. It's the latest bombshell in a series of top-secret leaks renewing concerns over interference in Canada's democracy and elections in 2019.
That's right, Anton. Yes, anti-Chinese propaganda is really hot right now. That's very true. And that's one of the main things that we'd like to talk about on this program. So you've come to the right place.
And 2021. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says foreign interference is a real threat, but dismissed some of the criticisms as partisan. He also called the intelligence leaks inaccurate.
Foreign countries are trying to undermine people's confidence in our democracies and destabilize those democracies.
Just not on my behalf,
When
though.
we lean in on partisanship around this, we're actually helping them in doing their work of sowing confusion and mistrust.
You're doing the electoral interferers' jobs for them when you get mad at me about this kind of stuff. And again, it's like there's countries that have open interference in our democratic process, but when it's Israel, we're like, no, this is actually okay. This is actually all right for them to do. When it's Saudi Arabia, they're like, yeah, go interfere away. That's totally fine. But this is when we have to put on our tinfoil hats. And we got to get really conspiratorial and suspicious about it when it's one of the official bad guy countries.
Joining me now to talk about this is Global News investigative reporter Sam Cooper, former CSIS director and national security.
You got the former CSIS director right on the TV. What more do you want? What more do you want? Amazing. I mean, we talk about this every time this kind of thing comes up, but about how these intelligence agencies used to like launder stories through the press, and how that whole process has just been like forsaken now. They don't bother to launder the stories through the press. They just go on Global News. Is the former director of CSIS. They just go on and promote the narrative that they're trying to promote. Good old trustworthy CSIS. That's right. Is your king going to make a statement about your democracy? That's right. Maybe the literal king that we technically is the head of our government can weigh in on this as well.
Security and intelligence advisor to the Prime Minister, Dick Fadden, and former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu. Thank you all for joining us. Sam, a really explosive story that you've broken here, alleging things that are remarkable about a sitting member of Parliament who, by the way, vehemently denies that any of this is true. He says it's all false. What are your sources telling?
Hold on, sorry, I had to think of something funny.
And as for the television's so-called plan, Batman has no jurisdiction.
Oh, I didn't know this was... It's a Joker.
Years. No, you don't understand.
I mean, Javier has shown Batman has... And he's just the beginning. And as for the television's so-called plan, Batman has no jurisdiction. He'll find him and make him squeal. I know the squealers when I see them. And...
Put to your
So I was just reminded of that guy on the TV.
About this member of parliament. Who is it? And does the Prime
Guy on the
Minister's
TV
office
at the meeting. I don't know.
We reported that 3 weeks before the 2019 federal election, the Prime Minister's top aides were warned by CSIS in a classified briefing that this candidate, Han Dan, was part of a Chinese foreign interference network. Furthermore, he was associated to another suspect.
What are the Chinese doing interfering in our democracy and promoting these like random liberal candidates? Is that a question that anyone wants to answer? Like, ideologically, what are they actually getting out of that? You know, that's the kind of weird question in and of itself. But again, I think the thing that I wanted to frame this with, though, is like, doesn't it feel like there is kind of something going on right now where CSIS and our media is coming together to promote this story to undermine Trudeau and undermine the Liberal government? Doesn't it feel like that a little bit? They're on there like representatives of these intelligence agencies on TV making these kinds of accusations about the sitting prime minister. Talking about interfering in our democracy, it kind of seems like CSIS is the ones that are trying to interfere in that process right now. And the media establishment is going along with it. Doesn't it feel like that a little bit?
Michael Chan, a former Ontario Liberal minister. So this is a very serious classified brief to the Prime Minister's top aides.
It's also so like, I mean, this is just planting the seed for like any Asian political candidate now is going to be facing these kinds of questions and insinuations. Any ethnic Chinese person, no matter what their political beliefs, or really any ethnic Asian person, that even whether they're Chinese or not, are now going to be faced with these kinds of accusations.
CSIS was asking the Prime Minister's office to rescind Don's nomination. A very serious warning. They're telling the Prime Minister essentially, you have a candidate that is working for China. The allegations, our sources say, is that Mr. Don is a witting affiliate of this Chinese network that we've reported on interference in 2019.
Why is CSIS choosing who the Liberal Party can nominate as a candidate? Why is CSIS getting like, no, you got to let this guy go? You know, and again, oh, he's doing China's bidding. What though?
So does the Prime Minister know? What our sources say is that the Prime Minister's top aides were warned. They ignored the warning, allegedly. Mr. Don won in 2019. He's re-elected in 2021. Meanwhile, we have CSIS sourcing saying this is a concern. And
I agree, Dakadoon. That would be cool.
Obviously, that's very concerning. I know, Kenny, to you.
And it all comes from CSIS sources, just being like, just trust us. That's the research. That's how we know they're part of this Chinese threat network. We're telling you. That's how you know. So what, are you going to drop this candidate or not? What actual evidence is there that any of these folks are compromised or doing the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party, which is the insinuation here? Literally all the evidence is just like, yeah, we checked into it and that's what's happening. So we just know. That's right.
A lot of this doesn't come as a surprise. You have long alleged that the reason why you lost the election was due to Chinese interference in your riding. What was your experience with that?
Well, Mercedes, I just want to have a minor correction of what you said. I've been saying that the Chinese interference is a contributing factor to my loss. You can never decide whether it's an exclusive reason or not. What
I lost because of China.
Is that within a very short period of time, less than 2 years, supporters of mine all of a sudden becomes very angry and emotional to me personally, and they will shut the door behind in front of my face, and they would used to plant lawn signs supporting me, and they would
China made them take down their lawn signs.
Want to vote for me, and all the difference.
No other explanation.
22 months of time, and it's all because of information that are being circulated.
That's actually the reason. I don't know if I told you this. That's actually the reason that I'm not a Canadian MP either, is because of China. It's not because I'm just some fucking dipshit. People don't like me now that I've hitched my wagon to the war over Taiwan Island. Yes. That's the only possible explanation for why I lost.
Among them in WeChat and also WhatsApp that, somehow convince them that I'm anti-Chinese, that I'm a racist, that I'm anti-China.
So the television here. So he's going on TV blaming. Let me see if I get this right. He's going on TV blaming China for turning possible constituents against him, suggesting that by falsely suggesting that he's anti-China. Is that about? Do I have that right? China is engaging in this illicit, top secret electoral interference campaign to convince people that I'm anti-China, which is not the case. Is that what this man is saying? Yeah, conservative that's racist, it's never been heard of. Is that what this is about? Y'all trying to ruin my whole ass life. Typical China watcher statement. China made my wife leave me.
In WeChat and also WhatsApp that somehow convince them that I'm anti-Chinese, that I'm a racist, that I'm anti-China.
And why do you believe that those rumors and those untrue stories came from Beijing?
Well, there are sanctioned articles that are being published in WeChat that we know only sanctioned information can be publicized in WeChat and get circulated there. And these disinformation article, would portray conservatives as anti-Chinese, that Aaron O'Toole, it's going to ban, of all things, WeChat, that Kenny Chu, it's going to put Canadians of Chinese descent.
Well, that's right, bluff. That's right. When China donates or gets involved in any way in this kind of thing, it's an unbelievable crime. When Israel does it, it's just business as usual. That's it. There's certain countries that interfere in our democracy all the time. Our democracy, such as it is. Our fake democracy. Israel interferes in that fake democracy all the time, though. And we're like, please continue. Please continue. We like it. Yeah, flow in the KSA money. Exactly. Keep that flowing. Yeah, and he's basically arguing to ban WeChat, right? And he's talking about WeChat being this source of electoral interference, while being like, they said that we wanted to ban it. And they're literally trying to talk about banning TikTok right now. That's right.
That they're risking a $400,000 penalty because of my private member bill to have foreign
Oh, but we should of course still have the Epic Times being delivered to all our parents and our grandparents and our gams and our meemaws. Right? The Epic Times. When it's coming from the Falun Gong cult, the CIA-linked, deeply reactionary Falun Gong cult, when they're sending our newspapers, melting our parents' brains, you can go on YouTube and look at Epic Times ads before YouTube videos. Does that count as interfering in our democracy? I guess? No? It's kind of weird what we decide what counts as evil, illicit interference and what does not. And you find those newspapers everywhere. Or like the whole Shenyun thing. You know? A lot of our parents like read that shit and see those ads and they go, oh, wow, interesting. Does that count as interfering in our democracy? Global probably runs Shenyun ads all day. Absolutely. For sure. For sure. It's really amazing the way that we talk about these things and what counts as propaganda and what doesn't, what counts as illicit interference and what doesn't, while ignoring again all the ways that we, along with America, are constantly provoking China and engaging in the exact same behavior throughout the world. My dad gets a paper copy of the Epic Times delivered. Weird how that doesn't count as a part of this conversation, though, does it? That just doesn't count. Not the same thing.
interference registry created.
I want to go to you on this, Dick, because I get asked this question a lot by viewers, by people who are reading the articles. They want to know, is the government legitimate? Was the election affected on a grand scale? Do we
Is the government legitimate? This is amazing that this is being talked about in our mainstream media. Like, it really is. Like, that's really incredible. Is the election even legitimate? Off these completely flimsy claims of electoral interference, which is this guy just baselessly blaming his campaign loss on rumors about him started over WeChat, which seemed to be accurate. So, and they're questioning whether the government is legitimate. Of course, they're not questioning whether, because we all know, as we all know, folks, the government is not legitimate, but not because of Chinese electoral interference, but because they're all owned by the fossil fuel extraction industry, the telecoms, the old growth logging, the mining companies. That's why our democracy is not legitimate, not because of some rumors that were started over WeChat. And CSIS wanted the election overturned. Like, it really does seem like CSIS is like directly inserting themselves into this. And as much as they're talking about China interfering in our electoral politics, it looks like CSIS is the one right now that's trying to manufacture a specific outcome in that. And our media establishment is just going, because our media establishment are just stenographers for the security state, as we've outlined many times, they're just going along with it.
Way to find that out?
Well, I think to be practical about it, we have to admit that Chinese interference efforts in Canada are targeted. They're not targeting every constituency in Canada. Everything that I've seen or read suggests that it's less than 24, and they may or may not have been successful in influencing those 24. So all of the remainder of those numbers would have determined in the end the final outcome. So I think
this boring fascist. This is some real banality of evil things stuff.
Absolutely legitimate. Individual constituencies, different issue.
Sam, I think one of the questions has been why politicians have not been willing to do something about this. That the foreign
the two
agents
Michaels
registry
bluff
is an example
are two beautiful
of that.
boys.
It exists in other countries. It doesn't exist here yet. The government is committed to sort of holding public look into whether or not they should have one. What do your sources allege the holdup is on the government being willing to take action to stamp out, I mean, as much as you can? It's tough with China, but to take some actions to at least make it hard.
How long until one or both of the Michaels is PM? I don't know if that's going to happen, because it seems to me that they've deliberately stayed out of the public eye despite the big media circus around the Michaels, precisely because if they talk more about their specific circumstances, it's going to become more and more obvious that they were, in fact, engaging in activities that got them very legitimately locked up, which didn't even happen until the Canadian government escalated that under Trudeau, who's now been framed as a basically Chinese spy in the media. Yeah, they're spies. Of course they are.
Harder for foreign governments to interfere.
I think the two main points. One of them connects to what Kenny said about being attacked. Look, a major bombshell in our report from several days ago
You're
is
gonna
that
have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Comrade Social Distancing, for the gifted sub. This is crazy making this stuff. This huge bombshell. This is really amazing shit.
CSIS reporting, according to our
count on me.
sources,
You're
says
gonna have
that
good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you very much, Comrade Social Distancing, Diego, for another gifted sub to Bluff Mallard. Thank you. Making sure we got no non-subs in the chat. We love it. Thank you so much, Diego. Yeah, active war claim. It's basically an invasion. Exactly. Interrupting Rob is my Chinese interference. Well, as much as it pisses me off when people interrupt me by subscribing and gifting subs to the channel, I guess I'll just have to have a stiff upper lip and just deal with it.
To what Kenny said about being attacked. Look, a major bombshell in
We're
our
attacked.
report from several days ago is that CSIS reporting, according to our sources, says that Michael Chan, a former member of Parliament, legislature in Ontario, promised to attack critics of the Chinese regime and was a friend of the consulate. So if we see politicians getting targeted for any statement about China,
And again, please, let's not look into Israel engaging in the exact same behavior. What happens when you're an elected official in Canada and you say one critical thing about Israel? What happens? Isn't there an entire lobby that's there to fucking go after anybody that steps out of line? Why is that allowed, and why is what you're talking about not allowed? Literally, you go on global news and talk about Canada being an Canada's an apartheid state as well, but talk about Israel being this apartheid settler colonialist colony of violent racists, like we're seeing these pogroms going on in Israel right now. And there's entire lobbying arms and campaigns that'll go in the media and talk about you being an anti-Semite and trying to destroy you and destroy your career. Right? What did the Israel lobby, how much impact have they done, whether it's like here or against someone like Ilhan Omar, against someone like Jeremy Corbyn? Exactly. But that's totally all right. That's totally fine when that happens.
Promised to attack critics of the Chinese regime and was a friend of the consulate. So if we see politicians getting targeted for any statement about China, it just raises huge questions about other politicians in Canada who may be tasked to attack them. Furthermore, what Canadian politician wants to go into an election with negative information about them? So could this explain why the Liberal government or other governments don't want a registry? They don't want to go into the next election facing the real concern that when they knock on doors, people will not be receptive because they will be called anti-Asian or racist. Of course, there's fundraising issues that we believe, or that is our sources say, Mr. Chan, the subject of our story, is a huge fundraiser for the Liberal Party. Does it raise questions why they may not want to look too seriously at allegations against him?
And Mr. Chan as well has denied these allegations. He says that they are categorically untrue. Dick, Jean-Pierre Kingsley, former Chief Electoral Commissioner for Canada, has said that we probably need a public inquiry to look into this to determine whether or not it's the case. As a former National Security and Intelligence Advisor, do you think that a public inquiry is needed to sort this out and to get to the bottom of what we do and didn't know and what happened?
Well, I come to this conclusion somewhat reluctantly because there's a history in Canada of a lot of public inquiries that have gone nowhere. Having said that, a number of them have been very, very useful. I think in this case... Such
as, for instance, the public inquiry into the largest mass shooting in Canadian history being committed by a RCMP asset. That kind of went nowhere, did it? We don't hear much about that one anymore. But definitely let's keep looking at this, though. This is really important stuff.
The allegations are so serious, they need to be looked into. So the question is, if you don't do a public inquiry, who does it? I think the logical place would be Parliament, but it has become so partisan that I think that this particular kind of topic would be almost impossible for them to look at objectively. So I think a public inquiry is really the route to go. It should be given a limited mandate so that they report, well before the next election. There should be an inquiry under the Inquiries Act so that they can call, subpoena people and documents if need be. And I can't see any compelling reason not to do it in the public interest, except some partisan considerations that Sam has raised.
And Kenny, I want to ask you about some of those partisan considerations because I've noticed a lot of conservative sources publicly criticizing Justin Trudeau, but privately they seem a little bit concerned about talking about China as well now too. Is this something that potentially affects both parties' willingness to take action or to take bipartisan action, which would take the politics out of it? If both parties are on the same page, then I'm not sure how China the same way favors one or the other.
Exactly. There should be bipartisan hearings about why China is bad and evil.
The Conservative Party and the opposition should deal with this.
Well, Mercedes, I think it's probably not a exactly fair portrayal of the Conservative party position on this because ever since Hussein Shaleo and then Julia and Kevin Garrett's and the two Michaels. I mean,
Here we go. Drink.
the current government have seen evidence after evidence that who we're dealing with, and yet, after what
Name
the
Dorp.
Conservative have tried to push the current government to renew a new strategy to do with China. They have ever since pushed back on that, and they refuse to conduct and update our national strategy. Conservative has spoken up a lot in the past. The matter of fact is, Canada is in a dire situation, not just to do with foreign interference. Yes, it's of particular concern to us. It's of particular concern to me. But we are facing a weakened economy. Our many Canadians believe that we're not heading in the right directions. Many things are broken. So Conservative are putting the priorities on.
If you had to say which Michael is more precious,
and one of them certainly.
If you ask one of these guys a hard-hitting question like that, their heads would blow up like that scene in Scanners. Can you choose, if you had to choose only one of the Michaels, rank the two, which one is more precious?
It's how to assert our sovereignty, how to protect ourselves, how to protect our democratic institute elections, etc.
We just have a few seconds left, Dick, but what needs to change in the law?
Well, I think we need the registry. I think we need to make it very clear that
we definitely need the foreign agent registry. That sounds very healthy.
The Canada Elections Act is complied with. I think it's dangerous to have the government try and regulate this too directly, partisan activities, political activities. But if you have a law, change in the Elections Act that says very clearly political parties have an obligation to do A, B, C, D about the receipt of money, how it's accountable for, probably increase the resources allocated to the chief electoral officer. But I think we need to recognize, though, there's no silver bullet. This is going to take some effort. Dealing with social media and some of the ethnic press is going to take time. But I think the first thing we need to do is to talk about this seriously. And given the general environment in Canada, I don't think it's going to work unless we have a public inquiry.
Well, certainly a remarkable story, Sam. It certainly seems that
right. That environment in Canada is just impossible to talk about because we're just so pro-China that engaging in this kind of rhetoric is just so difficult. Amazing. Excuse me. So it really does seem like CSIS is here like asserting itself, right? We can we don't need to talk about the hypocrisy about Israel, Saudi, or the fucking United States of America, countries that are constantly interfering in our politics and our democracy. We can talk about that hypocrisy, but really it does seem like CSIS in general is pushing and promoting this narrative with the assistance of their stenographers in our media establishment, right? All these stories are all sourced to CSIS sources, right? And here you have former director of CSIS just coming on here to make these kinds of allegations. See, the big story in Canada right now.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has ruled out a public inquiry, saying it's best left to the House of Commons committee investigating.
And how much of this is coming from one former MP that lost and is just blaming China for the fact that he lost? And blaming these rumors that started on WeChat, hilariously complaining that he's being framed as anti-China while simultaneously suggesting that the Chinese government is like specially implicated in ensuring that he doesn't get reelected personally. Getting ready for Taiwan on behalf of the State Department? Yeah, seriously. That's what pisses me off. The China narratives are pre-configured so half the country assumes liberals are working for China. How do you get anyone to see they're doing threat inflation when the starting point is Trudeau is working for China? And considering the ways that like our political establishment has been so like antagonistic towards China as well. And the idea that like our government needs to be even more antagonistic towards China than it already currently is. That somehow our current leaders, by not just like openly saber rattling and threatening war with them, are not doing enough, are not being anti-China enough. Yeah, we voted that China's doing genocide. That's right. The NDP and the Conservative Party both teamed up to vote on that. Although the Liberals conspicuously absent.
I was
Why?
turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Marina, thank you very much. Thank you for the raid, Marina. Get in here. Get in here, raiders. We're talking about China interfering in Canadian democracy. Very scary situation. Very scary situation over here. We're in. Thanks for the raid. I really appreciate it, Marina. I hope you had a nice day today.
The matter. That committee wants to hear from more ministers and officials.
Even like using this image, this totally looks like an image that they're like, he looks like so guilty and suspicious. It's like, you're like, sir, are you working on behalf of the Chinese government? And he's like, like, what is going on here? This really seems like the manufacturing consent button has been turned up to like a level 8 or 9 here on this. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like it's almost comical how obvious it is.
Our next guest was one of the Conservative MPs allegedly targeted by China's election interference. In 2021, Kenny Chu was the incumbent.
I should run for an MP. I could never ever win. I live in a liberal riding, and it will never not be a liberal riding. It just won't be. So I could probably create a media circus, maybe, but that would be kind of funny.
Incumbent Conservative MP for Steveston, Richmond East in British Columbia, before losing his seat. Mr. Chu joins us now. Thank you so much for making time for us, sir.
You're welcome, Natasha.
And sir, before we begin the interview, I just want to be as transparent with the audience as possible. These are exclusive reports by the Globe and Mail and by Global News. CBC News cannot independently verify the details, but we have, of course, been following the story closely. And I wanted to ask you how you felt when the Globe and Mail report came out about the 2021 elections, naming you specifically as one of the Conservative MPs that China allegedly wanted out.
Well, I got a mixed feeling at the time when I saw the report.
It's okay. We didn't independently verify them either.
It's directly related to myself and also my constituents. I'm happy and have a sense of being vindicated, at the moment. But on the other hand, the country is not doing nearly sufficient to protect itself. In fact, one can argue that there has been no actions being taken, even though CSIS and other.
If I lost my election, there's no telling what other dipshit conservatives could also lose.
Sounded the alarm, not just in.
We need to be prepared for this.
Two well-publicized reports for our 2019, 2021 elections, but also in numerous other reports that they have published to parliamentarians in the past few years. And therefore, it's difficult for me to feel a sense of justice and good being served.
Mr. Chu, before we continue, because I do want to return to this idea of the concern for the country as a whole, but from your personal perspective, I guess two things. Why do you think you were targeted, and how specifically do you think you were targeted?
I think, during my tenure as a member of parliament, I've been very clear that I'm on the Canadian value side, speaking up to, for example, how the Uyghur Muslims have been treated in the Xinjiang province in China. But more importantly, as I observe in the Greater Vancouver, Greater Toronto area,
you mean your Chinese constituents were turned off by your engaging in this kind of like rhetoric and accusing China of all kinds of these serious crimes and allegations? You're telling me that your Chinese constituents were turned off by that? Well, it must be some nefarious plot on part of the Chinese government to brainwash them into not voting for you. That must be the reason. That must be the reason.
And also diaspora Chinese community have been manipulated or have been at least exposed.
Great to finally have a Canadian MP that cares about Indigenous issues. That's right.
By the current powerful Chinese Communist Party controlled China. And therefore, it is not healthy. It is not good. And that's the reason why I tabled my private member bill for.
They are. No, for sure. Bluff. They're literally doing like double allegiance thing. Accusations toward these Chinese communities. And it gets scary, like if you think about how this conflict could escalate, if Taiwan does escalate into being a kind of flashpoint in this new Cold War, what that's going to mean for Chinese diaspora residents in Canada and the United States. I don't know if anyone thinks we've actually moved past the whole like internment camp philosophy that we once used against Japanese Americans and Canadians, but we have not. It's a very short step from this kind of rhetoric if this does escalate into a more serious conflict, into repeating those exact same horrific situations. Yeah, you put Chinese internment camps, nobody will ask twice, of course, and many people will celebrate it. Like people are being primed with all the Michael stuff, the spy balloon stuff. People are being primed to celebrate that. Right? They're talking about banning TikTok, talking about banning WeChat. People will celebrate this when this moment does come. Yeah, and it kind of seems like Tanya Zboop, he was, as an MP, interfering in Chinese affairs. But that's okay, though. That's okay to do. Because he was doing it, in the name of democracy and human rights. It reminds me of circa 2002 and how people were talking about Arabs and Muslims. It is strange how that just like the Islamophobia just pivoted to xenophobia just almost on a dime. And no one even batted an eyelash. This is the insidious, dangerous ethnic group that we're dealing with now. It's fucking scary.
Registry Act.
When you said people are being manipulated, what
the
does that
pivot to
mean,
Asia.
sir? What does manipulation look like?
That's right.
For example, the former British Crown.
What is this, the
colony
Chinese
Hong Kong,
consulate? They're showing scary images of the consulate in the B-roll. Oh, look, they got cameras outside there.
Interference.
Oh my goodness. Can you believe there's the bars, there's the scary bars, no unauthorized access to the consulate. The only country, other countries, their consulates, you're allowed to just walk right in there at any time. You just can stroll in, open door policy. The Chinese though, nope, not them. You got the fences, you got the cameras as well. Look,
said people are being manipulated.
Ooh, oh, it's that devious Chinese technological spying panopticon. There it is again outside the consulate. They actually have cameras outside their consulate building. That's just terrifying. Cameras just like in China. That's right. It's just standing there menacingly. This is amazing. This B-roll here. Is this one of these Chinese police stations, which also exists throughout the country? Apparently, we've had a number of stories about this. This is really amazing shit. Like, I swear to God, like, when you start looking at these narratives in Canadian media, it's like the effort isn't even there. It's like even more cartoonish. Yeah, it could be the U.S. consulate in Montreal, for all I can tell. That's right. No, but it's very, very nefarious, very scary looking. Insidious camera B-roll. Those are probably just the cameras to distract you from the other super secret cameras they're nefariously utilizing around the world. That's right. Yeah. And Meow Mix, this is it. I mean, you just nailed it. Our government pivoted to China in lockstep with U.S. policy, and our media is panicking over accusations of democratic interference from China. That's right. Yeah. I mean, remember the whole Two Michaels thing. Why did we imprison Meng Wanzhou in the first place? Because Huawei was accused of violating sanctions against Iran. Sanctions against Iran, which shouldn't even have been there in the first place, considering Iran was in compliance with the Iran deal, which was signed under the understanding that those sanctions would be lifted. The United States arbitrarily left that deal. The sanctions were reinstated. Then we arrest Meng Wanzhou because the United States State Department tells us to, because of these sanctions which Canada officially opposes, and then they snatch up in response to that, in response to our provocative maneuver, they snatch up two of our guys. And what do? We have a multi-year long pity party in the media about our precious boys, our beautiful precious Michaels that have just been kidnapped unjustly. Really amazing. This is really fucking incredible.
What does that mean, sir? What does manipulation look like?
No trespassing.
For example,
so
the
scary.
former British Crown colony of Hong Kong had been handed over to China for a guarantee of 50 years of one country, two system, maintaining its own freedom, including freedom of press, freedom of political gathering, and all that. Since
Freedom of press means you have Western financed press outlets being able to operate with total impunity.
Those freedom has been suppressed. Hong Kong, it's where 300,000 Canadians, passport-holding Canadians, are living, and it's critical to Canada as a country as well in terms of our trades and all that. So I spoke.
What are they even doing in Hong Kong? What are all these violations in Hong Kong that are even happening? He doesn't even articulate what that is. We're just supposed to connect that, when he makes that statement, we're supposed to connect that with the protest movement in 2019. Which, again, when you look at protest movements that have happened here, such as the BLM protests, it was treated with fucking kid gloves in comparison.
And for that, I've been branded as a traitor. I've been branded as anti-Chinese and haters. Many of the Chinese.
I can't believe someone would brand him like that. Well, this is what he's doing on TV.
From this mobile application called WeChat.
Of course, it was a color revolution.
Mainland Chinese CCP controlled.
Again, this gets confusing for people sometimes too. But when you see this, when you see our media focus so intensely on any kind of a protest movement, it's a color revolution. I mean, even if there's legitimate aspects to it, even if there's a legitimate spark, even if there's people involved that are like not all ops or not being paid by intelligence, when it's being promoted in our media like that, it's a color revolution. Yeah, it kind of seems a little like he's hating right now, right at this very moment. I was the target of a very subtle, very complex disinformation campaign. So what was it? Was it subtle or was it complex? Yeah, and the Ukraine flag in the background, of course. Yeah. Just noticed that as well.
Software, and therefore their informations are.
Yeah, it's being promoted because the end result is good for neoliberalism. It's destabilizing to one of our official enemies.
Either afraid of bringing up the topic and discuss and debate about it. And therefore, for example, when China imposed the national security law, a very, very tough national security law in Hong Kong, there are few objection being heard on the airwaves, and those who are opposing it have been branded as anti-China and anti-Chinese.
So let's return the conversation to a larger one here at home in Canada. Do you think the current government's response to these reports is sufficient?
Not nearly as sufficient, Natasha, because like I
Canada
said,
Land
this is
needs
not
to
the
get back
first
on
time
this.
that we have heard. The bureaucracy in charge of national security has sounded the alarm. Alarm after alarm after alarm. The government has not done anything. We know that in 2018 and 2019, when Russia has expressed
But
similar...
like, look at what we're looking at here. Like the nefarious pictures of Trudeau. And again, I'm not trying to stand up for Trudeau. As we all know, I'm not a big Liberal or Trudeau fan. But like, let's be clear about what we're looking at here. This is a coordinated campaign from the Canadian security state, along with these big media institutions in this country, going after the Liberal Party and going after Trudeau and framing them as being like willing co-conspirators in this foreign interference campaign. That's what we're looking at here, right? That's what's going on. Like, let's call that what it is. Not hawkish enough for the feds. Yeah. I mean, it does feel like that. Who knows what else is at play? Is this the Canada version of the spy balloon? No, because we were involved in the whole spy balloon thing as well, because it flew over Canadian airspace as well, and we were coordinating with the Air Force and everything to shoot down these nefarious balloons. So we were deeply involved in the spy balloon thing as well. We were just happy to be involved. This is a separate thing, though. This is the Chinese political interference story, which we've been talking about now a couple of weeks. We're still talking about this election in 2019. You can never be tough enough on China. That's it. It's like the posture towards the Soviet Union. Exactly. You can't even take this diplomatic edge of trying not to antagonize them too much. Right? That is what's going on, though. This is a coordinated campaign with the intelligence institutions, CSIS, the security state, and our media to promote this narrative, including our independent media, such as Canada Land, which has jumped right on this as well. Using the tried and true strategy of employing reactionary elements of diasporic communities to cut off any accusation of racism off at the knees. That's right. That's exactly right.
Interested in interfering with our electoral system, the government reacted. But
I can't believe I'm defending Trudeau on this.
News about 2019, when CSIS had actually reported a potential Chinese influence candidate running for the Liberal Party, and they are notified. They refuse to do anything about it, and to date, of the Chinese diplomatic corps, 146 of them, there has been no repercussion. There has been they have been operating under immunity within Canada, and those are not acceptable. The government of Canada's primary responsibility is to protect Canada and protect Canadians, and we are.
And by me losing in that campaign, that really had a big impact on that.
If this
they were supposed to protect me
against you by the Chinese authorities had not taken place.
He is some loser who's mad about losing. That's exactly right.
Well, it's definitely one of the contributing factor, but given a writing that is
and again, it's like when you've got like a constituency that has this like Chinese diasporic element, and you go on and make a big part of your politics accusing China of committing horrible human rights crimes, accusing them of like this crackdown in Hong Kong and violating the one country, two systems principle or what have you. And then people in the diaspora are like, well, I don't really like you if you're going to be accusing China of all these things. But they can't come to these decisions on their own. Remember, the only way that they could be coming to these decisions is if there's this like nefarious disinformation campaign brainwashing them. Again, it's going back to this like double allegiance thing, this double allegiance idea. And a Polish flag on the left. Wonderful. Wonderful. Diaspora. Diaspora.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Speaking of contributing factors, here is my contribution, comrade.
Diaspora. Thank you very much, Godzone Drunk, for the 13 months of Prime. Thank you. This story is really remarkable, honestly. It really is. I've not made the effort necessary to do this, but I really do want to try and reach out to mainstream media institutions in this country to try and get them to publish me and my extremist radical viewpoint of like, we should actually work with China. We should be supporting them. I really do want to try and test the waters to see if I can get anyone to publish this extremely radical belief that I hold. That we should actually not be constantly provoking and antagonizing this country. Yeah, Falun Gong is just a local community group. That's right. Yeah. The whole world should be running this story. That's true. We get this man on as a guest.
Who is to assess how many votes have been flipped? And that's why I've been consistently telling media that it is one contributing factor. Elections winning or losing definitely has many other factors.
Meanwhile, we have
well
NAFO buddies, financed by fucking God knows who, posting nuclear war is worth it to destroy Russia means. Ugh.
But as I have sounded the alarm, even prior to the election, very few, action have been taken. My party has also taken this concern to the election monitoring committee that they have put together. I think it's called SITE, and there has been no action taken. And for that, it only encourages predatory regimes such as Russia, Iran, or Communist China to continue to, if not up the ante on this game.
Will you run again?
Well, Natasha, it is not important if I'm running again. The importance is to safeguard our country.
Kind of does seem like that's the important thing to you.
If I were to run again, and if Canada is continuing to subject itself, be the weakest link in our free world, what is the point? So it is important that today we hold the government to account and make sure that they do something rather than say something about foreign interference.
Do something about me losing.
Mr. Kenny Chu, thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Thank you for.
Fucking amazing. Yeah, meanwhile, the Epic Times, 546,000 subscribers.
Anyone who chooses not to act would receive the universal condemnation of those who value innocent human life. And yet, 210 Democrats in the House voted against this measure.
To inject them with potassium chloride, and these are things that criminals, serial killers, serial rapists get on death row, and we're doing that to our children, little babies, defenseless babies.
Pro-lifers argue the baby is a helpless human being.
That's coming from the Epic Times. Media arm. Oh, and look, and we have Justin Trudeau doing damage control now. Look at this.
Obviously, we take very seriously the freedom of expression, the freedom of Canadians to engage how they want online.
This is going to be bad for Jagmeet. This is going to be bad for Jagmeet, considering his main role, not being a political figure, as being a TikTok influencer.
We also have very important principles around protection of data, protection of Canadian safety and security that we will always step up for. Like many countries around the world, we're looking carefully at how to ensure Canadians are kept safe online. And we're making the decision that for government employees, for government equipment, it is better to not have them access TikTok because of the concerns that people have in terms of safety. This may be a first step. It may be the only step we need to take, but every step of the way we're going to be making sure we're keeping Canadians safe. And certainly, I suspect that as government takes the significant step of telling all federal employees that they can no longer use TikTok on their work phones, many Canadians, from businesses to private individuals, will reflect on the security of their own data and perhaps make choices in consequence. But I'm always a fan of giving Canadians the information for them to make.
I'm trying to find the TikTok of Jugmeat in the shower. That's his reaction to the Canadian government banning this shit. Shit, where am I? Okay.
Thank you. In the past week, media have obtained leaked documents from CSIS about attempts by China to influence the outcome of federal elections here in Canada. Your own spy agency is leaking documents to the press. Are you concerned about this, and why do you think this is happening?
We are, of course, always concerned about national security. We are always concerned about ensuring that people can have confidence that our intelligence agencies in particular are able to do their job and keep their secrets and function as responsible agencies. We have at the same time moved forward with unprecedented measures of oversight over those agencies. You know, despite the Conservatives' objections for many, many years, in 2015, we brought in a National Security and Intelligence Committee of parliamentarians from all different parties, from the House and the Senate, who are given top secret clearance and allowed to lean in on everything our intelligence and security agencies are doing to keep Canadians safe. This was an important measure around oversight that Conservatives always resisted, but that we know is all about ensuring that our agencies are doing the right things to keep Canadians safe and aligning with our values and priorities as a country. So we will continue to ensure that we have proper oversight over our agencies. We are very concerned with the leaks, particularly because there are so many inaccuracies.
Okay, so this is fascinating, right? Because he's talking about we need to have oversight over CSIS, and look at the language he's using to talk about these leaks coming from CSIS. He seems totally aware that there is this campaign going on, and he seems to be kind of like mildly pushing back on it. This is fascinating.
With
look at him.
The leaks, particularly because there are so many inaccuracies in those leaks. But that's an entire other question.
It is another question, isn't it? Isn't it, Justin? That is another question entirely. Look at him. Yeah, he's basically like, CSIS is lying about me in these leaks. Like we're seeing this, like, something very strange going on with the Liberals at Justin Trudeau are being targeted by the security state, and he's kind of trying to mildly push back. Of course, he's not going to go in and purge these institutions because that would be Stalinist. But he's clearly aware that he's being targeted by some kind of a campaign, and he's trying to push back against it. Deluge of blackface photos coming, even more. You think it's entirely manufactured? No, I don't, because I do think that like there is definitely a campaign coming from our security state targeting Trudeau and the Liberals. We can speculate as to why that's happening. They're not being hawkish enough. There's more tensions coming up. The U.S. State Department is pivoting to Asia, pivoting to Taiwan. They want to make sure Canada's on board to be as belligerent as possible. And Trudeau is being too diplomatic. Is that part of it? Trudeau seems to be aware of this campaign going on against him and is pushing back against it. Anyway, let's ignore this and ignore that CPC members are literally meeting with German Nazis. That's right, yeah. I mean, our media has talked about that a little bit, but not nearly the same extent. Not nearly the same, like, oh, the hushed tones, worried about this nefarious campaign of political interference. I mean, talk about Canadian interfering in other democracies as well. Talk about fucking Ukraine. Was it interfering in Ukraine's sovereignty when we were pumping weapons into Ukraine for the last decade and arming and training these militia groups, these fascist militia groups who were targeting other Ukrainians, ethnic Russian Ukrainians? We were contributing to that whole civil war that's been going on the last 10 years. Does that count as political interference? The whole Euromaidan, you know? Does that count as political interference? This is really interesting. Like, they've been beating this drum for a while. This is from 2 years ago. This is a story from Global News 2 years ago. They've been pushing this for a while now.
National security reports by Global News.
This is 2 years ago.
Canada is a permissive target for China's broad interference campaigns.
Global News reporter Sam Cooper dug into these reports and expert
Yeah, we've been interfering with Ukraine since day
us
one
now
after
live
World War
from
II,
Ottawa
for
with
sure.
more.
The Lima Group,
Good
yes,
morning, Sam.
thank
Let's
you.
start out with
Thank
what
you.
did your
Does that, of course, that doesn't count as electoral interference. The Lima Group, you know, when we decide that some random fucking guy is the president of Venezuela who has no support, no constituency whatsoever, and we just randomly appoint him the president of Venezuela, is that electoral interference? Is that interfering in their democracy? I don't know. I guess not.
Investigation find here?
Jesus.
Yes, what we found is that China has been very successful undermining Canada.
Same guy.
Using something that they called the United Front. This is an influence and espionage network.
Part of the Chinese threat network.
Elite Canadian leaders, institutions, they offer sweet business deals, and really they end up using trade with China as a weapon. Experts say the effect is some Canadian leaders,
or like the Orange Revolution that was literally straight up admitted to be a U.S. op, like we bragged about it in The Guardian and shit. That's right. And we're going to focus more on Ukraine tomorrow stuff. I got lots of stuff to look at with that. I'm running out of time today, but got plenty to look into on this subject tomorrow.
Influential groups end up advocating for China's policy. For example, the court case of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou, or they fail to criticize China's human rights abuses. And in this way, Canada's democratic values are being undermined.
So your report says that Canada's Intelligence Committee report points to Australia
This is 2 years ago.
as a
They were
model of
pushing this.
fighting interference. So what is it that they do?
What Australia has done is after investigative reporters exposed
This
a number of
motherfucking
cases with...
First of all, journalists are supposed to be nonpartisan, number one. This reporter, journalist, is expressly telling us we need to be more like Australia. We need to be even more antagonistic to China, like Australia is doing, which is famously working out really well for them as well, and deeply antagonizing their top trade partner like this and their geopolitical neighbor.
China's corruption and interference. Australia in 2018 laid out a number of
Well, Bluff, this is what I've been wondering.
laws.
What if Canadians want to be friends with China? I want to be friends with China. Are my views being represented in our press?
In business dealings, they have to register. That way there's transparency, and if people are found
Oh,
to
not
be
calling out China genocide? What's that? Are China paying you? That's exactly right. That's the only possible reason that someone would have to ask questions about these campaigns, right? That's the only possible explanation.
Acting for China's interests, undermining Australia, they can face prison terms of 10 to 20 years. So there's some very serious consequences and laws that really experts are saying Canada needs to follow up.
This
in
guy's
that area.
saying we need to have laws to threaten to imprison journalists more. This is a guy who ostensibly promotes press freedom. This guy's literally out there 2 years ago, still 2 years later, promoting the same campaign, advocating that we enact harsher laws for journalists and politicians to be able to be locked up easier.
What was it that caused Australia to act that way? And can you give us more?
Yeah, because the United States told them to, sir.
In Canada, I know Huawei being one of them.
The United States State Department told them to. That's why they do it.
Well, in Australia,
President Xi, we're not all like this.
Really, there was a very a spectacular case involving an Australian senator and a United Front leader, a billionaire involved potentially in corruption, a casino high roller, became a huge political donor in Australia's system. The Australian senator ended up advocating China's military policy when this United Front leader threatened to pull a $400,000 donation. That resulted in a lot of exposure, public debate, and these criminal code changes. Experts in Canada say this type of corruption has to be happening with regards to China's interference.
Experts.
Really,
Who are these
it's just a
experts?
question of the
CSIS.
scale and whether Canada has the legal
That's the
tools
experts.
to expose and prosecute.
Again, if there's one takeaway about our media establishment, this is true in America as well, but I think it's even more true here that the mainstream journalists in this country are stenographers for the security state, for the intelligence community. They go to their little conferences and the people at CSIS tell them what to write down, and they write it down in their little notebooks, and they go and write their little articles about them. And then they say, you're well, is that good enough for you, sir? Did I do a good job? And the CSIS guy says, yes, sir. Good, good. And you get a little head pat. You get a little head pat from your CSIS overlords. This guy gets to pretend he's like a spy. I mean, he basically is a spy at this point. He's essentially a journalist that's out there doing the bidding of the CSIS and the security state and the intelligence community. So what's the difference between that and just being like, he's obviously an asset, right? He's not even really trying to hide that. He's literally just going out there and saying things that CSIS tell him to say in the media.
Prosecute these cases.
And in your research, I mean, is the federal government doing anything or any steps being taken to address this?
What our investigation showed is that, for example, Canada's intelligence agency, CSIS, has been investigating, warning for years. Other agencies have been warning the government.
No, folks, no one is listening to our brave men and women at CSIS. They've been doing the hard work, keeping this country safe, and no one wants to listen to them. I'm an objective journalist in Canada, by the way. No one is listening to our brave men and women of CSIS, tirelessly working to defend this country, and not being respected or not being listened to. Very unfortunate stuff.
Canada, for some reason, hasn't been acting as other allies such as Australia and the United States have with regards to these serious threats. So at this point, we have strong recommendations in front of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government, and experts say that it remains to be seen whether Ottawa will act on these recommended measures.
Wow.
Okay.
My bosses in the Canadian intelligence community. This is really incredible. I mean, this story's not going away. This was 2 years ago. And this story is still, like, they're still just hammering this, but now I think that there's a lot more of a receptive audience to it than there was 2 years ago. They're having a hard time catching on. And now people have been primed by the propaganda machine. They've been primed to listen to these stories about electoral interference a lot more. I got one more, and then we'll move on. Actually, I will say goodbye.
So how concerned should Canadians be over these alleged
This is a big news story. There's a lot of different news pieces on this.
With me for some more perspective now, Ward Elcock, former director of CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, and Guy Saint-Jacques, former Canadian ambassador to China. Hello to both of you. Thank you very much for making the time.
You get a
Mr.
nice
Elcock,
wide viewpoint here. You have the former ambassador to China and the former CSIS director to weigh in on this.
I'll start with you. In your capacity as director of CSIS, I'm wondering what your perspective is on the scope of what's being alleged as far as China's potential interference in...
I honestly can't tell. I swear to God, I'm not doing a bit right now. Is this the same former director of CSIS that was on before, or is this a different guy? I think it's a different guy, but they're just so, every single one of these people, ghouls, is just this like boring loser that all look and sound identically the same. So this is actually a different former head of CSIS that's responding to this. It's pretty amazing.
In the 2021 election. Is it
standard issue
that
CSIS
we just
director?
know a lot more about it, or is it a lot more than what China's been doing in the past?
I think what China has been doing more recently has increased significantly since even my time as director, although even then China was probably the most important target. So the fact that
the most important target. Yeah, it sounds like
problematic.
It's a Freudian slip.
It goes with the whole process of China's engagement with the world. We're just another part of the world.
Are we the target, or is China the target, sir?
Where some of the things that they used to do, which are covert or are unfriendly, they just do more of them.
What was laid out there, Mr. Saint-Jacques, in the Globe and Mail as far as what is being alleged China did in 2021, is any of it news to you?
Well, I think it's an escalation. I knew that they were interfering more and more, and as Mr. Elcock was just saying, in fact, since Xi Jinping came to power,
where's an example? Where's an example of this?
Substantially increased.
Is it really just about that one fucking guy?
War Department, which is charged with propaganda abroad, especially trying to influence the Chinese diaspora around the world. And when I was ambassador, I knew that they were trying to influence some politicians at the mostly at the provincial and federal level. But in fact, what we learn in those most recent articles is a step much further, and I find this very worrying.
Does it necessitate, Mr. Elcock, from where you sit, a stronger response?
It depends what you mean by stronger response and what it is you can do.
What can be done from where you sit?
Ward Elcock.
That's complicated.
We had I can't remember what the other guy's name was. We had like former CSIS director Dick Johnson, and now we got Ward Elcock coming in as well. Coming in to weigh in also. Ward Elcock. They're dabbing on us, folks. They're dabbing on us. They're daring us to call this out as being completely fake. These are fake people. These are video game baseball names. Ward Elcock is another way to pronounce that. Fucking Jesus, what a ridiculous place we live in.
I mean, this is, in a sense, counterintelligence work, although, as Guy pointed out, it isn't just simply intelligence services. There is the United Front
Former Director Flib Dangley,
which they have emphasized even more in the last few years. So but it is a essentially a counterintelligence investigation. Some of it you could take care of by putting in place a registry. You would catch the people who are buying friendships and so on, the Chinese who are being recruited by the Chinese as friends of China, so to speak. The more difficult part is the clandestine part, the part that's being taken care of.
Men in suits and ties, you gotta love them. They're so correct and official. That's right.
Interference that's being done by foreign intelligence officers from China and in some cases other countries as well.
The first part of the solution being proposed that Mr. Elcock just touched on, Mr. Saint-Jacques, is what, for example, some conservative candidates allege is the reason they were targeted by China. The proposition or the proposal that Canada adopt
No, they're not
a
saying
foreign
anything.
agents registry. Do you think that is likely to sort of prompt China to target candidates?
Well, I think, we should have been adopting the Australian approach a long time ago. Australia was faced with a similar problem about 4
We need to be
years
more
ago,
like Australia,
and
this
they
argument
adopted,
again. Good.
4 laws to try to prevent foreign interference. And one of the law resulted in the creation of a registry for everyone that represent a state-owned enterprise or
No
a foreign
problem.
government. Of course, nobody said
We
it
just
was
need a little
better than
registry.
China, but everyone knew that it was. And I think that
We just need to put together a little list of names. That's all.
well, the result of the
What could go
election
wrong?
was not
We just need a couple more
influenced by that.
lists.
Well, I would make a comparison with a hockey game. What about,
The Australia approach, seriously, the Australian approach. We need to be more like Australia and have our foreign policy dictated by a fear campaign almost solely coming from a single organization funded by American weapons companies. Yeah. What's wrong with that? What's wrong? It's worked out so well for Australia. Why can't we have that here? And as I've talked about before too, it's like this degree of separation when you talk about things like the fucking, what is it? The Australian Strategic, the ASPI, who are one of the main sources for the whole Uyghur genocide story in the first place, funded by, like we're saying, these US-based weapons manufacturing companies. But again, what degree of separation is there between that and the state and just being funded by the US government? It's just this, it's literally this money laundering process, right? The money goes right from the United States government right to the coffers of these defense companies. And then in addition to profiting from that, those huge contracts that they're getting, they then take some of that money and they pour it into foreign think tanks to study China and to study Russia and study Iran and all these things. So there's this kind of degree of separation between the US government and these think tanks that create these narratives, but really the money is coming from the same place, right? The money comes from the US government. It takes a little pause to go into the bank account of these weapons manufacturers, CEOs and shareholders, and then it moves on into this think tank world. And then we bring those think tank heads onto our media. But we say we don't have state media. Of course we don't. What are you talking about? These are experts. They work for these very official think tanks not linked to the state at all. Yeah, it's exactly the reason US NGOs are getting increased scrutiny internationally, and they should. You know? They absolutely should. Like in Nicaragua, they're throwing out all these NGOs and these Western-backed media establishments. And then, of course, we have a hissy fit over it. Or with Belarus as well. We'll massacre all the scum you have, or whatever the quote was. Oh, you're upset. There's a reason that these places are being targeted, with very good cause. We talk about, we worry about China interfering in our democracy, but this completely, this massive NGO and think tank industrial complex funded by these arms manufacturing companies, that's okay. And in fact, when other countries try to throw out these NGOs or throw out these media establishments, we then accuse them of being authoritarian simultaneously, right? The fucking double standard is just unbelievable. He was real for that one. I don't want to give him too much credit. I don't think you have to hand it to him. He was very real for that one, though. There's no denying that.
Still your hockey stick or cut the laces on your skates and you get on the ice. And of course, the other team has more chances of winning. And you say, well, the game was decided on the ice. So it's something similar that, in my view, requires a full investigation. It was reported that there were
China is stealing our hockey sticks.
Well, an investigation.
Could this be more of a fucking farce?
Ask, candidates, because I'm sure they have compile information on all those volunteers, who they were, and we need to sort this out. And I think there are a number of measures that need to be taken to counter this kind of behavior, including, if required, expelling Chinese diplomats.
Let me pick up on that point, Mr. Elcock, because that is something the opposition has called for. Basically, at the heart of the political back and forth over this is whether the government is taking it seriously enough,
fake country,
addressing the issue as fully as it could. On the prospect of expelling diplomats, your thoughts on that?
The prospect of expelling diplomats can actually backfire. Not always.
Look at how salivating the media is to escalate this even more. We're going to start expelling diplomats. That would be a huge escalation.
Something like 12
These media people are just frothing at the mouth for that.
The Russians turned around and expelled virtually the whole of the embassy, the whole of the real embassy in Moscow, plus a whole lot of people who hadn't even made it to Moscow yet, who were in the process of preparing to go to Moscow, effectively destroying the foreign affairs program vis-a-vis Russia for a period of years. So it can backfire. The question of what you can actually do is a difficult one. I mean, for the example, in the case of the money provided to a candidate, if it's illegal to provide money to a candidate, then you can prosecute somebody. But then you've got to prove where the money actually came from. And that can be difficult too, because you may have to reveal sources that you don't want to reveal who provided you the information about the links that would allow you to know where that information came from, where the money came from. So this is more complicated than certainly the political parties would like it to be, I'm sure. They would like it to be much simpler. This is complicated stuff, and it will be hard to work out in simple ways.
Mr. St. Jacques, just circling back then to the point you made, and it's certainly one that you've made before as China does grow more adversarial, that you kind of...
They're growing more adversarial.
Have to take a posture that stands up to them kind of thing.
Amazing.
And that's what you just outlined.
Amazing.
As well. Why do you think at this juncture that is so crucial?
Well, you know, what China has been doing is they have been gradually being more forceful in their approach, and their attitude is that if it does not generate any reaction, well,
we're literally accusing them of crimes against humanity, right?
The language that China understands is firmness, and we have to push back. And maybe, before
they only understand strength.
We should convoke the Chinese ambassador, or
yes, start from that framing. That's right. Yeah.
Toronto or
that's our media, our unbiased, nonpartisan media.
That goes against bilateral relations, against international treaties, and if this is repeated.
Why is it so crucial to start a new Cold War? A person who will confirm everything I want them to say. Yeah.
Stern warning, and let them know that
it's just a joke.
But otherwise, if you don't do anything, if they will always continue to push, and our space will be gradually reduced, and our democracy will be affected.
Okay, I have to leave it there. I appreciate the analysis from both of you. Thanks, Mr. Elcock. Thanks, Mr. St. Jacques.
Thank you, Mr. Elcock, as well. Anyway, we'll continue covering this story. I think it's really fascinating. There's something really kind of fascinating going on right now that's worth investigating. And it's always, I think, really interesting to me to analyze and try and understand like what is being accomplished and really try and have a sort of criticism of the way that our media talks about China or any other official enemy bad guy country. China is obviously the main target right now, but I think it's really important that we always look into these narratives and look at the way that our media frames these issues. Our supposedly free, non-biased, non-partisan media that we always lecture other countries like China about as an indication for why we're a free democracy and they're an evil authoritarian dictatorship is through our free press. And these principles of open speech and dialogue and free journalism and whatever it is that we say. And then you look at the way that these stories are presented in the media, and it's like fucking comical. It's comical. I got to go soon, folks. This has been one of the longer streams in a little while. Okay. I do have to go. A few generous chatters, folks, could get us a little closer to the sub goal. A few generous chatters. Again, I don't get invited onto Global News. I don't get invited onto the CBC. I don't get invited to opine in the Globe and Mail about these issues. The only way that I'm able to do this kind of commentary and in any way make any iota of an impact in pushing back on these relentless narratives from our media establishment is by the endless, boundless generosity of the TRRS community members who support this channel. So if you enjoy this content, you enjoy the community, I encourage you to please subscribe or gift subs or friend coin or subscribe to my Patreon or what have you. Every little bit helps. Join the community, become part of Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped trickle-down clout and friendship access tiered reward system, the only such community that exists on this entire platform, and help me continue doing this subversive, non-pyramid scheme, non-cult, non-psyop commentary. That's my pitch. That's my pitch, and I imagine the subs are just going to come rolling in now. I know any moment now they're all going to come rolling in. The big wave, the big tidal wave. If I had a BBC show, I'd let Rob on it any day. I am going to make more of an effort to see if I can get any kind of a platform in our media establishment in this country. I don't really think that
you're going to have good old Rob
I can
to talk you through all this.
Because I don't think, even though we have this like marketplace of ideas, that anyone's interested in hearing my viewpoint on this. But I am going to try and see if I can leverage the platform that I have on here and elsewhere into getting some kind of a opportunity to weigh in on things in our media establishment. I'm not expecting too much from it, though. Thank you very much, Ben, for the gifted sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Help Rob continue being a voice of reason in a corrupted media landscape. That's right. Thank you, G. Kleppy. Again, I'm very interested to see, as much as we love to talk about our marketplace of ideas and free press, is our free press open or amenable at all to airing the viewpoint of someone that's saying, like, I don't think we should have this like constant antagonizing relationship with China, this burgeoning superpower, you know, and calling out some of this ridiculousness in our media establishment, or suggesting, yeah, I think we should have friendly relations with this country. I think we're actually the ones being aggressive towards this country and adversarial, and not the other way around. I think to confront massive global crises like the climate crisis, like the possibility of World War III, we should be working with this country rather than constantly antagonizing them and suggesting that they're trying to destroy us. I think you'd be able to get on CGTN. Well, probably, but like, I would like to get on fucking Global News or the CBC. Right? Even if they don't agree with that viewpoint, I would like to at least say, just in the interest of having a marketplace of ideas, that's a legitimate viewpoint to have. These people might think that I'm being paid by the CPC in order to say these things. I assure you that I am not. I wouldn't say no to it, but I'm not. But these are legitimate. This is a totally legitimate viewpoint, and it's completely absent from our entire media ecosystem. Completely absent. In our media or political establishment, it's just like how you can be antagonistic towards China or like belligerent. And there's like, that's the you can go from one of those poles to the other. How antagonistic do you want to be? How belligerent do you want to be? That's where our free speech comes in. That's where they get the ideological differences. Well, thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate you all very much. I really do. Again, a couple of really big things coming up on the program. We got Brian Becker coming up. We got the Deprogram Pod coming up. Lots of big guests. Lots of stuff going on this program. When is Brian Becker? I will let you know. I just texted him today. So I'll let you know. Over the next few weeks, though. We had Hildebeest in the chat earlier, so let's reciprocate with a raid to our friend Hildebeest.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Marty, for the gifted sub to Clueless. Much love to the entire On VHS family. Not the first family of TRRS, but like the second, probably. The second or third, which is still very good. You know? That's still really good. I think it was the first, at least that's the first represented in the Discord. Well, I mean, I think when I get, what am I, just chopped liver? I consider myself and my cat the first family of TRRS. There's some stiff competition. There is. We're having tryouts. We're room for aggressive expansion. See you folks tomorrow. All right, and now that they're gone, now that they're out here, now the real show begins. I was waiting for them to leave, and now the real show begins. When I suggest all my true beliefs come out. After the riffraff, leave to go somewhere else. Thanks, folks. I'll see you tomorrow.